7 o'clock and we're having a quorum. I'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with old and new business. You have some bills to approve, apparently.
No, we do not.
Okay.
Just
Fine.
administrative.
We have a request to close out an RDA at 57 Longwood Road. Messrs. Gargano and Moore. Is that what you guys are here for? No, you're here for the continued NOI. Okay, yeah, okay. Well, that's Johnson Woods too, but.
I probably wrote the letter for it.
Okay. 57 Longwood is, Chuck, remind us, is that the house that was built there?
57 Longwood is the RDA that we were talking about, a few things on that. One of them was the cellar window with the drain pipe.
Right.
You walk past that. So this is just an RDA, so I think you guys decided that you would walk past and come to a conclusion, but when Bob Moore was here.
Bob Gargano was here.
Bob Gargano.
Ted Moore.
It's Ted Moore and Bob Gargano.
Bob Gargano, yeah.
They're very
we would
different.
discuss it. So this was the night you told me to put it back on.
Okay. I don't see any problem with closing it out.
Whose name is it in? Is it in their name?
Well, it was a Longwood Road property.
Yes. That was the,
Edward Moore.
You're right. That was the house. Wasn't that the house that was built? The new one?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't see any reason not to close out that.
We did look at it.
Yeah, we've looked at it several times.
the only, it was on the other side of Longwood Road.
Right,
It
right,
happened
right.
to be in the 200-foot buffer for the
Right.
riverfront area where the driveway is.
No, I know the house. It's a new house built uphill. Are there any comments or questions about it?
I move we close out the RDA for
57 Longwood.
57 Longwood.
Is there, all those in favor? Okay, very good. You got that one from National Grid gas line replacement letter, Wilson and Hyde Streets. We did do a site visit. It's all in the right of way. When we were there on Sunday, they were what?
It was half done.
Half done.
That's good. Just shows you, I guess, not to buy National Grid stock because Beverly Axe and Paver told me that it hadn't started yet, and she has no time frame for it.
Well, maybe it was some other utility work, but there was a fresh cut in the street with a fresh patch on top of
And
it.
it looked like the kind of National Grid narrow channel. Didn't look wide enough to be.
So it's just
They
a-
were working on Saturday because I tried to drive down John Street and I couldn't get down there. And it blocked off.
That was actually a phone call I made today, so
Okay.
maybe they came out this morning and she didn't get an email yet. She's going to update me and I'll update the commission. Was there anything you saw there that you wanted?
That looked
No.
fine. It's right in the,
Yeah, it's way
in
away
the
from
right
the
of way,
resource area.
and it's well away from the resource area. So no issue there at all, Chuck. Okay. Ratify emergency certification for the removal of 2 beaver dams on Track Road. Chuck, do we have to sign off on those?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Well, I'll wait till the motion.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to ratify the emergency certification. Is there a second?
Second.
Where are the dams? There's 2 of them?
Yeah, on Track Road, there's a kind of an access road right at number 71 Track.
Okay.
And that bridge, there's a bridge there, and the town has like a right-of-way parking area, and there's a road that runs right down the drainage easement. And they took that out this Monday.
So the dam was not on Walker's Brook, it was on this drainage easement?
Yeah.
Was there any water in there?
There's a lot of water in there. If you walk to the end of this access road, you're looking at the back of what I think is Home Depot. And a big swamp, a retaining wall, Home Depot, and then some condos to the right. And when they took out these 2 dams, one dam was holding back 2 to 3 feet of water, and the other one was holding back about a foot. And when they took both these out, the water levels dropped about 2 feet.
In Walker's Brook?
Yes.
Well, in this area.
In this area.
So,
In
this
this
is
So
tributary,
I
yeah.
guess what I'm not being clear, is the dam across Walker's Brook?
No, it's not.
But the water is backed up in Walker's Brook.
Yes, yes.
How does that happen?
It's a feeder.
Because it's a feeder, and if it's backed up upstream of that dam, it goes into Walker's Brook.
Oh,
Okay. If you look at some of the drainage, particularly, say, behind REI and behind Home Depot,
yeah.
that stuff feeds into Walker's Brook. So if you dam some of it, you'll get excess water in Walker's Brook.
Still not sure I understand how that works. If you dam up tributary, it's not going to back up water in the main stream.
I think the tributary then loops around and at a
Connects
higher
back
rate connects
into
back. It doesn't connect back normally, but there is a drainage easement that loops. It's kind of a oxbow.
When we were doing the river study, we stood up there on Jordan Furniture and looked down. And knowing where it was, we could see, or thought we saw, where there was a beaver dam across Walker's Brook, then back up Walker's Brook a long way. And I'm wondering if that's the one that came out.
Well, they're calling this just a drainage easement.
I'm guessing that
Yeah.
they're talking about the part of Walker's Brook that's channeled.
Right,
as an easement.
behind Jordan Furniture,
Furniture.
between Jordan
This
Furniture
furniture
and
and-
Greenwood Acres.
Right.
Right, that's where the
Greenhouse Acres.
greenhouse acres.
Okay.
Was there a?
It drains out towards 129. Does that help you at all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the confusion for us is the track road issue, because it's really,
Track roads on the other side
Other
of
side.
129.
no, it's on the same side of 129, because basically, here's the back of Home Depot.
Right,
Walker's Brook meanders around, goes behind those condos that are
Right.
on 129, and Track Road is still on the same side. It just loops around and comes through, back behind Track Road.
did the health department issue a concern?
So what? Yes.
What was the concern?
The flooding. There's a flooding issue. It was brought to the attention by the DPW, and this gentleman on 71 Track Road had lost his embankment a couple years back. The water level was getting quite high,
Right,
and it was obviously flooded, and it was obviously flooded from
Yes, I
those two
remember
dams.
that.
Yes.
So this, after studying it, she went out there. We both went out there and checked it out. We waited a week. It was originally for a 10-day beaver permit, which was not issued because she felt that there were no beavers out there. We came back and we just removed the dam. So that was, there was a lot of flooding. It's dropped down 2 feet. Everything looks a little more normal now.
But I think you're right, it probably was on what is an arm of Walker's Brook, and they're calling it drainage easement because it's where it's channelized before it goes into the canal.
if next time we have one of these, if you could get Kim or somebody just to print out a GIS map so we can see where the dam is,
Mhm.
that would be very helpful for me.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, we have a motion on the floor. I'll ask for approval. All those in favor? Okay. And we have a closeout request, RDA closeout request, 32 Catherine. Tell us about it. Is the work done?
The work is done. Everything is complete. Had a couple calls from these people. They're pretty much, everything's outside of the buffer zone where the work was done, except for, I guess they did a little grading, and that's all taken care of now, and the grass is in place. So, here's the map of the site plan if anyone
Right.
wants to see it.
We went ahead and did a site
Yeah, we did a
visit
site
there
visit there, and it
Yeah.
was
before
fine.
it started.
Yeah, but it looked like
Yeah, it's very
it's not an issue.
No, there wasn't, and I think, from what I heard from the developer, that an RDA was asked for because they thought the septic system would encroach upon the 100-foot buffer zone.
Right.
But after the
Turns out
fact,
it
he
wasn't.
wanted to do some grading back there, so we used the RDA for that.
Oh.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to close out the RDA on 32 Catherine.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? It being 10 after 7, we continued an NOI on 270-0591, which is undoubtedly the rest of Johnson Woods. No, Bill, why don't you, or Brad, or whoever, tell us what we need to know. This is the second phase.
Second phase,
Right.
we had extended this to let the CPDC kind of get caught up, to make sure where we were. There's some minor modifications that CPDC actually requested us to incorporate onto the plans.
Okay.
None of which affected anything within the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. So there are no changes within the resource areas or adjacent to the resource areas on this plan. Other than maybe we put, we had roof drains here, and the town engineer asked us to put clean out manholes on parts of the roof drains. I'm not sure what they were on the original ones. The bulk of the changes that occurred within the roadway itself. On our original plan, this section had a riprap slope to make the grade adjustment between phase 1 and phase 2. We always knew we were going to do something more decorative, but the CPDC wanted to see what it was going to be. So we have a series of 3 small, 2.5-foot wide, high stone decorative walls. We have plantings between them.
Okay.
So just make that grade adjustment. But that's, this is about 250 feet away from the 100-foot buffer zone,
Right.
so that doesn't affect anything. Town engineer also wanted us to, for the parking lot drainage, particularly for the 3 larger structures, to make those catch basins go off of Taylor Lane here instead of letting the water flow onto Taylor Lane. So it resulted in us adding catch basins in the corners of the 3 parking areas and slight grade adjustments in the parking lot areas, so everything pitches to those basins before it goes out into Taylor Lane.
Okay.
We redid the whole drainage
So
analysis.
it goes from those catch basins to the storm drain in Taylor Lane?
Yes. So, I mean, it's essentially the same thing as it was. I mean,
Right.
it's going to the same place. It goes to the stormwater management areas here that are recharging it into the ground. And one of the other things that he wanted us to change was, because this was partially constructed, when we did the drainage analysis, we did it based on the as-built condition of this piece merging with the unbuilt piece of this
Right.
piece. And he said it was too confusing because, so he said, take this back to the original unbuilt condition and then show me the built condition. So the modified drainage analysis you have now makes that little tweak on the analysis.
It's actually a very big tweak.
It
It's a lot of calculations. Yeah.
was a lot of redo, but
Right.
basically all that happened is it makes the stormwater management even more effective now because
Right.
we're going to the pre-existing to the post-construction without the step in the middle that we had here. So that all works, all the numbers are even better than what they were originally, so that didn't really have any effect. One of the other things that we had that they insisted on was an actual physical connection of the water main into Inwood Drive from Taylor Lane. Originally, we were anticipating just doing a hydrant-to-hydrant connection in emergency, if there was an emergency on either one of the conditions. Between the 2 communities, they've decided that they want it to be a hard connection.
Okay.
Again, that's in the roadway, it has nothing to do with...
So that's the Reading system connected to the Woburn system?
Both MWRA systems.
But doesn't
There'll be double
Woburn,
gates.
doesn't Woburn have some of their own supply or not?
They do. However, this Inwood Drive is
wants to drink
fed
it.
from Puritan Ave on the other side at Commonwealth Ave, and it's a dead-end line all the way to here.
And it's all MWR?
It's all MWR, and that's all that gets into this end of the...
Right. So,
We don't want any Wells G&H.
no. So, it's double gated. It would only be open in an emergency situation, similar to what there's an emergency gate here for the fire access.
Right.
Just like the other accesses.
What size is the pipe? Just out of
It's an
curiosity.
8-inch line.
inch.
It connects to a 12-inch line that's over there.
Okay.
Again, utility adjustments, the sewer lines were adjusted according to what he wanted. We've added some gates for the water system. I mean, essentially is no specific change over and above. I mean, nothing that Conservation Commission should be
not.
aware, I mean, have a problem with. The fitness trail is again located where we said it was. It's not within the zone of natural vegetation. It is within the 100-foot ZMB, and we talked about that the last time being something that the commission might entertain.
Right.
And that even though we're showing the location here, what we would expect to do is when we did the fitness trail, we'd walk it with the commission, make sure that everybody's happy with where everything's going.
We walked it a couple years ago.
Right.
You've walked it, this
That-
is the one
that
that's in
piece.
now.
Right. Oh, that
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
that's
That's it.
100% complete now?
Yes.
Okay.
This would just be an adjunct to that, and this has the actual fitness things
The
connected to
stations,
it. Right.
Bill, I think the only thing I would recommend, and this is just because since we originally did that, we've now got a Trails Committee in town, that perhaps
That's a good
we ought to
idea.
ask the Trails Committee to walk it with you.
Absolutely.
I mean, we've essentially allowed them to do most of the trails work now, and frankly, we've been able to be more responsive because that's their shtick.
That's, you know,
Yeah.
any direction that you.
Yeah, that's about the only thing.
That, obviously, we would do that.
Okay. Any questions?
Tom?
I do remember talking about the, I'll call it a pedestrian path, because that's what the regulations, that's what you're citing here as what's allowed, as this is
Right,
exemption.
we talked
But
about that.
you call it a fitness trail, and with that, it brings along workout stations and other things like that. So we did talk about that definition. We talked about public and private, and we talked about it not fitting the exemption that you point out.
Right.
But the document that you've submitted again tonight continues to say that that is an exempted use.
Yeah, but I thought we had a discussion about that, and we decided that that was something that the commission was going to entertain.
In my opinion, a discussion of whether we would entertain it and whether it's an exempted use are two different things. I'm not sure why it has to be called out as an exempted use. Is there something in the,
It was just, we were looking at that part of the regulations for the riverfront area, and I understand the tweak that you're saying, that the regulation maybe is for the trails, but not these, but none of these things are in the riverfront area anyway. It would just
These
be,
things being the workout station?
just the workout station,
Yeah.
whether it's a balance beam or a bar or whatever. We thought they were a compatible use of the trail.
I don't question that. I just question, I'm not sure that you need to call it out that that this is allowed as a minor activity. I don't think it does, I don't think it changes anything. In fact, I think it allows the board to agree with you and allow the activity. But as you call it out as an exempted use here, it kind of conflicts with the regulation and, you know, makes it
Well, I
difficult
guess the order of
to,
conditions can just read that, don't agree with that, but that you would allow that to be the use. If everybody's in agreement with it.
I would rather
don't-
see it taken out. I just don't see the need to call it out as an exempt. I have a lot of other comments. I'm not sure that I'm going to get to issuing an NOI tonight or a order of conditions, but, so I'll finish up and, there's no real discussion of how you're going to build the fitness trail. I would assume there's going to be small trees you take down, probably avoid bigger stuff, brush, whether how you'd control that erosion during the, doing it, what type of equipment you'd bring in there to do it.
We said everything was gonna be it was all gonna be done exactly the way we did this trail.
So
It was
all
gonna be the same materials, same,
all the trees will be
procedure.
small enough where you can take them out with an axe or by hand.
that's why we wanna make sure, yes, that's why we wanna make sure we walk this trail so that we're not removing any large trees. The
Tom,
only
when
thing
we
would be
put
would
in
be
the
shrub.
original one, Fran and I and Ted walked the trail, and when we saw a tree that we didn't want taken, we moved the trail around it,
Sure.
and we designed it as we went through with those things in mind. And
Okay.
it worked pretty well, I thought.
Yeah, and I thought, when we talked about it, we have to set a post for one of these things that It'd just be a household digger, it's not gonna be heavy equipment, it's gonna be hand tools only. You have a mat, you put the spoil down and then you backfill, and that's how that's all gonna be handled.
How's the trail graded out? Is it graded out at all, or
It's
is
gonna
it
be natural,
Just
just natural
natural?
topography. That's
Just
all
chips
that
right
we
over
did.
the ground that's
Just
there.
on the ground.
That's pretty much what they did last time.
Yeah, the plan was not to disturb any soil. really.
Okay.
You know,
Right, that's
we
the
did.
whole purpose
Yep.
of just maintaining the natural.
Good. You mentioned in quite a few places oil debris traps. I wondered what type of device you're going to use.
Those are gas traps, and they're, every one of the catch basins has gas traps in it with, it's the standard that the catch basin that's required from DEP, and the detail of that on the detail sheet.
Is it just a cast iron hood?
This is the, on sheet number 5, it's a precast catch basin. It's called a snout, it's an oil gas separator. It goes inside the structure. It actually has a hood, so that the water level is always, any floating debris or oil that would be in there, the water has to go down below the submerged level to go out, so there's always 4 feet of water in the bottom of the basin. That's to allow, sediments to stay here, but it's also to allow the oils to be on the top floating, and this prevents that. So it's basically just a trap that allows that to happen, so they stay there until they're cleaned out.
How does that handle resuspended fluids when your second storm, your third storm comes along after you've settled your water, your oils will come to
Two
the
different
top?
things. This is the catch basin. The other thing that you're talking about is probably the storm scepter.
I don't know. That's why I'm asking. It says and oil debris traps, so I'm just.
The storm scepters are the primary treatment for some of the areas, and that's these things. These are more sophisticated. They're actually designed, and we run a model in DEP. This is where I put some verbiage in there that said that the storm scepter calculations, originally the DEP in February of 2011 indicated that they wanted to, when you use these units, you design it by the flow rate going through the unit to meet the TSS removal rates. Then they reverse themselves on that. For the top program, they were originally getting 77 to 80% TSS removal for this by itself. So I told the town engineer, and I said the state, that now they've left us no way to calculate which way to go. So we've done the calculations both ways, sized it. The sizing came out the same for the units that we've used, and we've taken the credit that would be there for that to get us to the TSS removal rate. And in the documentation you have the TSS removal rates for all of the stormwater management areas, and they're all well above the 80% in the summary table.
So the oil debris is inside of the storm scepter, not the catch basin. Is that correct? Okay. Well,
The
I don't.
catch basins are the first line.
Yeah, I don't find that the hood stops the resuspension of the fluids. That type of hood is actually a design that was put in place by the MDC many years ago, back in the 40s and 50s, and it was called a gas trap because it stopped
That's
vapor.
something, that's something different.
Not a liquid.
That's something totally different. This is the MDC sewer gas trap, and that's the connection that's going to the sanitary sewer. The drains, this gas trap here is the MDC gas trap, which is in the plumbing code. And this has to be used for the parking garages that are in the buildings, because the parking garages potentially have oil leakages and things that can go onto the pavement. So there's an under-drain system in the parking garages that have to come out, and because the concentrations of those can be higher, those are required to not go into the drainage system, but they go into this MDC gas trap, which is in the plumbing code, and then this goes into the sanitary sewer. So this is a
So
totally
those
independent.
garages are draining to the sanitary sewer?
Pardon me?
The garages are drained to the sanitary
The
sewer?
garage is under the building, so they're never gonna get any roof runoff or any rain runoff. It's only
Oh,
if there was snow melt and you
Yeah.
went into the
Right.
garage.
You gotta
or
associate your car.
Okay.
something.
but they're not open to the rain?
They're not open to the rain.
Is it put into a closed tank? A closed tank that you have to pump periodically?
This, two of these are gravity, and the last building, which is the building that's furthest down, this building, the gas trap is right here at the front, at the door, and because of the grades of the sewer, that's pumped up into the gravity part of the sewer here, so there was a pump from there to there.
Maintenance-wise, how do you capture that product that gets put down into that drain, and for that part, into the storm scepter as well? What's the frequency, your cleaning of that? How do you,
It's in the stormwater maintenance manual that's in the back of this book, the maintenance program. And it's based on manufacturer's recommendations. We are using that now. There's an operation and maintenance manual. And it's in the operation and maintenance manual, the way that the manufacturer recommends doing the maintenance is based on the depth of sediment that's in the basins.
I'm talking the petroleum.
That gets sucked off the top when it's like a backhaul truck that comes in. They suck the floatable debris and the oils that are on the top, and then they go down and they take out the sediments that are in the bottom. So it's basically a septic tank hauler that hauls that away.
But is there a sensor that tells them when
No.
that product gets to a certain percent?
No, they have to be inspected.
They're inspected, there's an
Part of the
inspection
case.
thing, and there's,
Okay.
Yeah.
So that device that on the catch basins in the upper right-hand corner,
this one.
do you have any of those on site?
Yes, all
now?
of them have that.
And have they been cleaned since
Yes.
they've been installed?
Yes.
Are you finding a lot of oil in there,
No.
or do you know?
And there's virtually no sediment. That's, DEP says we have to clean them at a certain frequency, and what we're finding is
Right.
there's nothing in them. So it's sucking water out.
I don't think cars, at least the cars parked in Johnson's Woods, leak as much oil as cars did 30 years ago.
Or parts in other parts of town.
Or parked in other.
You know, I mean,
But at the same time, though, there's a potential for something else to happen there, be it someone changing their oil, or
Oh,
someone
sure.
spilling something,
Absolutely.
or anything else.
And that's
So,
why
yes,
storm
you know,
scepters are required.
Yeah.
This whole project was done with an eye towards making sure we had storm scepters because of the what ifs. Okay.
I think I've found in your operations and pollution prevention plan, for the storm scepters, it says sediment removal is recommended annually.
at the same time they do that, they take the liquids off.
Right, I'm more concerned with the recommended annual rather than required annual. A lot of this, I read the operations manual, a lot of it reads as kind of a guide on how to write an operations and maintenance manual rather than the specific things that will be addressed for the operation and maintenance.
Well, with the phase 2 part of the program that the town has to do, we have to make these reports to the town engineer as part of the requirement. So this is an annual report to the town engineer certifying that it's all been done.
I think they come to us also.
It
I
does,
think there are copies to us, yeah. It's a report to the town engineer.
but it's a requirement.
Right. With the fix.
And this operation and maintenance manual is the one that we developed with the town engineer.
So this will be done annually and sent to both boards?
Yes.
Both the town engineer and this board? Okay. there's a lot of mention about erosion and sedimentation control. And from what I can see, there's discussion about sedimentation control using hay bales and silt fence. But I haven't been able to find, maybe you could help me find it, anything to deals with erosion control. If the sediment has already reached the hay bales, the erosion part has kind of already happened and you're not controlling it anymore. So I just wonder if you're going to be using any filter fabrics or hay mulch or anything like that. There's, quite a bit of disturbance here.
Yeah, I think
at different times and, the year, I'm sure, as you try to close up jobs or begin again and everything else. So if that could be addressed.
I think that if you, in here, there is,
I just don't want
during
for
construction
Chuck
of
to
this-
have to go out and inspect, and then we get into this issue about what we should use for a material, and there's no discussion about it, and,
well, actually, it's under controls, it says erosion sedimentation
Where
control
are you?
stabilization
Sorry.
practice in the operation and maintenance. Erosion sedimentation controls, it's got permanent stabilization, temporary stabilization, what you do, how long it has to be, if the exposed areas are there for a certain period of time. The whole thing is controlled by how much construction we have going on at any one time. And the activity that we're talking about here is that we're going to construct Taylor Drive all the way to Inwood Drive. All of the stormwater management areas that are associated with that will be constructed at that time. And then, so none of the other site is going to have to be exposed or open at that time. This is the first building that's going to be constructed, so it's going to go from this building, that'll be all constructed, stabilized, so we have a concentrated area of activity here. Everything else over here is still stable. That gets stable, we move to this building, and then this building, and then we envision that this piece will be the last. So under no circumstances are we talking about
So we're not opening
ever
the
having
whole site.
anything
Yeah.
open.
Okay.
And we discussed that in the sequence of construction that's in here as well.
Which way do the contours go on that first building you're gonna do? And maybe you can get into how the erosion control is just in back of the building and how you're gonna prevent that from just heading back down that hill,
Well, I
in
mean,
that area.
this will be stabilized, we'll have the erosion control in place. If we find that once we get this flattened out, there's not going to be much of a tributary drainage area to that. So this might
that's the
put
only place
temporary
I can see
stabilization
right
with
there.
either, probably with the filter fabric type rolled out mats on the hill after we stabilize it. And we're going to have access around here during the construction period, so it may be even crushed stone or something like that goes on the surface until we do that, and then we will permanently put the final paving and landscaping on top of it.
First dotted green line, that's the 100-foot.
This is the 100-foot buffer zone.
I am not, it's under, I think, standard 4. I don't have a page number for you because they aren't labeled, but it's under TSS removal calculations.
Yep.
I'm not sure that we actually have any calculations. And it talks about the process chain, but it doesn't describe that process chain or show that process chain as to how you got to these, greater than 80% removals.
The TSS removal calculations are shown on the TSS removal calculations. There's a table 4 that shows they're all, the lowest one is 82.8.
Well, that shows a number, but it doesn't show how the chain that you used and the calculation you used to get there. It just shows the total number. Typically the table shows the credit you took for each of the different types of BMPs. The way that they were linked together, which one was first, and that type of stuff.
This was a supplement, so the original,
This is the original here, actually. Okay, it doesn't say that. It says this is the notice of intent. Right.
Yeah.
But it's added to this.
It's a supplement.
Well, it says revised,
I understand.
December 28th.
I'm not debating your.
Okay, I just took it as
Yeah.
what it says. I didn't realize I had to combine the two together to make sense of this
Well,
whole
I
thing.
think we do, but. because I
Tom,
think-
where are you in the operate voting?
I think it's under standard 4.
Look at the storm scepter chamber that one? Or standard for?
80%
Okay.
TSS removal water quality
I got it.
volume.
Okay.
And then
Fine, help you out.
coming along, it's right above table 4,
Okay.
TSS removal calcs.
Well, I don't have, I'm not sure which one that is. I told you that the calculations for the storm scepters, which is the treatment for all of them on its own, without street sweeping and without the catch basin, you get 25% for a catch basin, you get 5% for street sweeping, you get 80% for the storm scepters. So all of them combined are well above the 80%. And obviously with the numbers that are in that table 4, they're all well above the 80% removal. So, I mean, if you want me to give you the individual
No, I-
chain,
I just want to make, you're not, I did read in here, you're not taking credit for street sweeping. So we're down to deep sump catch basin, which I would assume is before the
Yeah.
storm scepter. And then 80% removal of the remainder to get, it's not of the total, it's only of the, of what is.
right, but if you take 25% from
No,
100, then you-
believe me, I can do the math.
Okay.
I'm just saying that the calcs are not here, there's no explanation of how the whole thing's put together, and it's always the same process chain?
Is there a reference?
Just the deep sump and just the storm scepter? There's no forebays or anything at the end of
No.
these things, or?
There's no reference, Tom?
No.
Well, it doesn't
Well, it
refer
references
back to-
table 4, which gives the
The result.
the quantity that would come out of the equation, but not the actual calc or the train, the way it's
Do
put
all of
together.
these go into the infiltration basin?
all of the new stuff does. These are all infiltration, so they all have a storm scepter in front of them, except the one that's just roof runoff by itself. It's clean in front of, so it doesn't need to be cleaned.
Right, number 7.
So none of these go to surface?
No.
My memory isn't that good, but I thought if you weren't going to surface water, you didn't even have to achieve the 80% removal. Am I wrong?
The recharge that we have here, since we're above the water table, there is, if we didn't have the storm scepter in front of it, it would have a beneficial effect, but I don't think it would get it up to the 80%. Just like the treatment trains through here gets you,
Right.
75 or 70% going through there with the catch basins in front of it, it gets you up over the 80% of the open basins. But for this, where we had a rapid infiltration of water, which is what we had here, because of the rapid infiltration, the recommendations are to get at least 45% TSS removal before you let it go into the ground. So we just use the higher treatment standard to get it up even higher than that.
And that table doesn't take credit for the removal in the infiltration basins.
Right.
So before that water gets to the surface water, we're talking
Serious.
pretty clean water.
Pretty clean.
Well, if you think of this, this is no different than a septic system by the time it gets to the groundwater.
Right.
A septic system is the raw effluent to the septic system, and then going through the 4 feet of stone
Right.
and sand.
In this same section, which I guess is from the drainage study, the revised drainage study, there's no mention of standard 10. illicit discharges. I realize it is mentioned in the next section, but it's not addressed in this section here. I guess an overall comment for the long-term prevention plan, again, is that there are a number of statements in here that just, again, kind of have these recommended practices rather than these specific practices that you'll be following. In the storm scepters, it's this recommended annual sediment removal. The level spreader should be checked periodically. The parking lot says that it is planned to sweep, not that it shall be swept. I would like it to be more specific so that it, we know what you intended to do and that you're doing it. Further on in the standard 4 water quality, there's a mention for snow disposal and plowing plans. It shall be in accordance with the Bureau of Resource Protection. Do you mean Mass DEP, or do you mean, I'm not familiar with the Bureau of Resource Protection's guidelines on snow disposal. I'm familiar with DEP's snow disposal regs, but I'm not sure what these say.
I'm not sure what the reference is. It was meant to follow DEP standards. And what is?
I don't know that Mass even has a Bureau of Resource Protection. I don't think they do.
Yet it stated a guideline with an effective date.
Yeah, I don't know. Didn't have a chance to Google that one and find it.
Tom, what
BG
standard was
used
that?
to have a resource protection, I don't know.
BRPG.
Is that a Bureau of DEP? Yeah, they used to. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
if
they
it's-
used to.
Yeah, I don't
I'm
know.
sure they still do.
Well,
Well,
then,
Paul's was in charge of.
Hey, Tom,
yeah.
you probably saw, I'm sure you saw this already, you've obviously looked more closely than this than I have, but, and that's going back to the TSS removal that you talked about. There's sort of a key paragraph here at the beginning of Standard 4, which is a few pages before that Table 4. Anyway, it looks like they come close to it, but they say that the removal is based on a couple of specific storm scepter models. Okay, and I think if we can get this gentleman to maybe find out from them, what their specs are. It's the Model 450i and the Model 900. So basically, they just attest that this Rinker Materials, who manufactures these storm scepters, has asserted that it'll remove 80%. But they must have a basis for that.
That's
Right.
the top testing that they've done with the
Yeah.
state before the state kind of went.
Right.
And they've got top testing in New Jersey and
So
other
to satisfy
states.
Tom's concerns, can you provide a copy of those, the results of that top testing for him, or?
I don't think the TARP testing is accepted anymore.
It's not accepted anymore because Massachusetts stopped their top program.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a dead end.
Yeah. My concern with these storm scepters is that they do a great job at catching sand. Suspended solids are measured in a much finer grain size.
These go down to a lot, there's different types.
That's
There's the
right.
vortex type units, which don't go down to the level. And the vortex units, if there are any in town, I don't know if there are, the vortex units, one of the things that they used to say about vortex units is that they were self-cleaning. Well, the whole purpose of it is not to be self-cleaning. The purpose of it is to catch the stuff. So they kind of corrected their literature after the fact, but I've never used the vortex ones. These retain particles of a much finer nature, and it really surpasses what the requirements were. But that's one of the things that the manufacturers have a problem with the state, because they would never define what size particle they wanted to remove. So you had people testing different things, going from the size of a BB down to
Dust particles.
dust particles.
But the
But
dust
it-
particles are the particles that are truly suspended solids that are where the nutrients attach themselves to. They don't attach themselves to
And that's
BB-size sand grains.
Right. So that's why we've always selected the storm scepters, and the storm scepters have a better proven track record of removing the finer particles.
Yeah, Tom, I would say in the absence of reliable test results that, that cover different particle size fractions, that's probably an acceptable answer. If we can get some, other references of other facilities or that have used these types of storm
They're in the
scepters
other part of the project.
and have been inspected, over a period of time.
Right. And
That's
they
what
are
I
in the
would
rest
go
of they are in the rest of the operation.
I've probably installed hundreds of these throughout the state on different projects, and it's always been the higher end. I mean, these are a lot more expensive than some of the other units, but those are the ones that we've always used.
I'm not going to argue it anymore, but just because you go to the thing and it doesn't have it in it, doesn't mean it already passed through.
And I'm not saying, it
It
sounds
does
like, and
not
again, I'm
capture
just
total
trying to
suspended
capture the
solids.
broad brush here, and in my,
Right.
and
Yeah.
what I'm hearing is that the testing is not adequate for these units, which is unfortunate. It sounds like no one has gone to the trouble of saying, all right, we're gonna look at these, various size fractions
Right.
to see what the efficiency of removal is for these different
That's
types.
correct, yeah.
And again, in the absence of that,
But they're still accepted
we have
as
to,
having
he's
doing
perfectly
it.
justified in saying, well, we've used them at this facility and this facility and this facility, and they've been inspected, for 2 years at each one of these facilities, and it's been successful, and that might, so in other words, anecdotal evidence, I guess, is what we're gonna have to go with, I guess.
Yep.
So,
There isn't, I think you're right, the absence of standards in this area is frustrating just about everything.
But DEP had, prior to this last round, had evaluated all these, and they had put out a bulletin
Right.
saying what the TSS removal rates were of these
Yeah, no, I
devices.
remember that. Any other questions?
Well, we've been able to determine that the Bureau of Resource Protection is DEP, and it maybe should be just labeled that way so it's clear. And then two more comments. At the end here, Standard 10 is put into the operation, the long-term pollution prevention plan. However, it says this document includes provisions relative to this item as well as providing good housekeeping items for both during and after construction. And I haven't found anything at all about how illicit discharges are prohibited, how the plan has shown them to not be there, and also how the plan has shown that they would be prevented from being connected. There's no illicit discharge compliance statement. That's a requirement that is supposed to be signed, and I believe it's even supposed to be recorded with the order of conditions. So that's not present. And then my last statement would be is that it was kind of difficult going through this because I'm more used to using the stormwater checklist. That's a requirement to be submitted. So required to be submitted, stamped by a PE. It's about a 9-page checklist, pretty thorough. And I don't see it here unless it's in the previous document, but I didn't realize we had to look at in conjunction.
Front page has my stamp on it, and this is a document that's totally
The cover
my
letter,
document.
yeah, has your stamp on it, right. And the checklist says a stormwater report must be submitted with the notice of intent, and then the report must include, and it goes through, stormwater checklist, completed and stamped by a registered professional engineer. I'm sure you've probably used it to guide yourself through what you're supposed to be doing. It's 8 pages long, it's got a series of checks. It essentially helps the board members make sure that everything's been taken care of and addressed, and there's different things here that need to be done and everything else like that. So I would like to see some corrections to the document before I could vote for it, but I don't know if anyone else has any comments.
Any other questions?
Tom, do you think we could address changes to the document when we write the order of conditions so they don't have to reproduce the document? In other words, clarify, specify constrain or elsewise address your concerns?
I don't know that we could put enough conditions in to address.
I think
How would
I wanna- I
we
wanna-
condition that something's missing from the original submission? Something that, I don't know. You know, this bit about the exemption here is bothering to me. It just, you know, we just state these things and just keep rolling on. And I'm afraid that if we continue to state them this way, that other people are going to think this is actually true.
Well, we could say in the order that the path is allowed under the regulations and an exemption isn't applicable. Similarly, with the operation and maintenance plan, we can say that in the order that the operation, the activities recommended in the operation and maintenance plan are required, or I think it was recommended, the term they used that we had a problem with. We say they are requirements.
In the past, that's exactly what you've done. You've had a finding that you've made certain findings, and in the order you compel certain action to be taken as a condition.
I think we have to focus in on what we're actually talking about here. I mean, this is a buffer zone project that's got, you know, we're way away from any wetlands, we're not doing any wetlands, we're not having any disturbance to any wetlands. You know, a lot of the stuff that we've given you was basically for courtesy because it's just all way away from the project. You know, if you want to rip it to shreds, that's fine, you can rip it to shreds, but I mean, all you gotta do is take a look at the other part of the project. You know that we've been doing the maintenance. You know we have a quality builder here. This is a positive project for the community. You know.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the drainage from the parking lots and the roofs go to those infiltration basins
Yes.
before they ever get to a surface water.
And the bulk of them don't even, there is no discharge out. It's all infiltrated.
Right. So I guess I'm a little more comfortable if knowing that, because we have a backstop and we're not talking about a discharge. I mean,
We
compare
have
that to
in
E-cars.
the 100-year storm, we have a discharge out of here about 0.35 CFS or something like that.
I mean, compare this to the E-car where the discharge, I mean, they did a great job on that.
Right.
But their discharge goes right to the stream.
Yeah, they're also required to clean out their 4 times a year.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's
Right.
like 4
Which makes sense, which makes
Yeah.
sense.
Well, we sort of have two possibilities. One of them is to try to incorporate this in the order of conditions. The other would be to ask for a recast of the document. Let me ask for a straw vote. How many of you would be willing to put this in the order of conditions? It's a straw vote. And Tom, you prefer to have the document redone?
I would add to that I always like to have, whether it's, you know, a courtesy project or not, I would like to always have my paperwork without Scribner errors.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure how.
Any kind of like recommendation, suggested, things like that on their O&M plan. I'd like to see that tightened up with some dates. I thought that was a good suggestion.
But tightened up in the order.
You can do it that way, but the O&M plan's going to be around a lot longer than the order of conditions. I mean, isn't that true?
Well, the order of conditions requires a revision. Isn't that what really effectively we're saying? That we're saying the order of conditions will say you need to revise your plan to change this.
Right.
Right? I think that's what I'm saying. So I think it's a matter of just.
Why don't you just make the condition that you're gonna get a copy of the annual maintenance report that's going to the town engineer. I think you're gonna get it anyway.
I think we do.
But
Yeah.
that ends up,
It seems to me that the sense, at least, unless I misread it from the straw vote, would be to write those into the order of conditions, recognizing that is the document of enforcement. And I agree that it would have been nicer to have it would have been better to have it in the original document. Any other questions?
Just a comment,
Barbara.
considering the past experience with this company and with everything that they've done, which is basically now they're doing the same kinds of things, just in a separate area,
In a further away
in a
location.
further away location, and we haven't had any problems.
Right.
So I don't see why we don't let them do it. We know how they do it, we know how well they do it,
Right.
and we haven't had any problems with it.
Okay, Chuck, a question. You don't have a draft order of conditions?
No.
Okay, so we'll have to continue it anyway, but what it seems to me is that we would, based on the straw vote, we would be prepared to approve an order of conditions with those recommendations made as firm musts and with the edits that Tom has so carefully looked at.
So, could you clarify that for me as what we're gonna require? I mean, if we can't issue an order of conditions, why wouldn't we ask them to correct the document?
Well, we can't issue an order of conditions because it hasn't been drafted.
Well, for whatever reason, we can't issue the order. They have to go back, we have to wait. Why not take the time to go through this and apply some quality control to the document and get it right? I mean, it's what we should expect of any applicant, any engineer that comes in front of us to make sure that they check their work and do a good job. And personally, this is not the first time that this company has come in front of us. In fact, I've seen this company 3 times. There has not been a document put in front of me that has not had glaring mistakes on it.
Well, if they're mistakes, well, maybe I didn't hear them. I heard changes. I didn't hear mistakes.
Well, leaving things out of the operation and maintenance plan, or just completely leaving out standards, not talking about calculations that don't exist, to me, those are oversights, and they should be addressed. They should be included. You know, they happen. Of course, they happen. But to say that, gee, we can't issue the order tonight, but we're going to say, oh, heck, just leave the document alone. We'll make up this thing, and we'll cover all these. We'll try to cover all of these different things, and they just skate. I think we're teaching people, send in what you want, and we'll find a way to approve it. And I just think that we should expect a quality document to be put in front of us that we can read, the checklist that's required that we can review and go over it. I just think we bend over backwards sometimes to find a way to approve it. When we just ignore the standards, we ignore all about it. I mean, they're making statements in here that are just totally false, and we're going to accept
Mr. Chairman, I think that the issue, if there's a checklist of things that need to be addressed, like may to shall or recommended to shall, those are very appropriate to have stated in an order of conditions that must be addressed. This commission, historically, other boards have approved things, and they require that certain changes be made to the document itself. I don't think it has to become adversarial in nature. I don't think there has to be comments made regarding the quality of the work. This is certainly an excellent engineer, an excellent project, and would simply request that this proceed on a positive basis.
Well, we certainly have to issue a continuance because we don't have an order of conditions drafted.
I think, Tom, if there are things that you feel should be changed or included in the order, if you could get those to Chuck, it's just a list from your notes, so he has them in the order, and the order could say, if you feel it's important, that the applicant, before submitting construction, submits A, B, and C. They may be recalculations or more detail on operation or maintenance or whatever needs to be required, and they have to be submitted prior to construction, and that would be part of the order.
If I had received this request before when we talked about it, or any time between from the time we submitted the thing and when, October to now, I would have certainly made an effort to try to satisfy any outstanding conditions. But when I come to the meeting, when we've been continuing it, and then we start doing a picky list of these things, I just don't think, we need to have a little bit of correspondence back if there's something that needs to be done, and you've had the document for 3 months.
Yeah, unfortunately, Bill, one of the realities of our life, just like yours, is we're all volunteers, number one, and number two, what we end up doing when something is continued is put it on the hold, okay? We don't get paid by the hour.
Right.
We don't get paid by the minute. What we do is put it on hold when something's continued.
Yeah.
Now, I understand that, I understand both sets of frustrations, okay? It seems to me that engineering documents, having been once in the jet engine business, need to be quite precise, okay? And when they're not, I understand it's not correct in the absolute sense. I also understand that we are, has been pointed out a couple of times tonight, dealing with a quality project and a builder who's got a good reputation and who has tended to do things correctly. So my sense is we're to do it as we've historically done it, in the order of conditions. We will endeavor to, in the future, read documents a little more expeditiously and get feedback to you more quickly. And in the meantime, I would hope that when engineers draft documents, they not only use the spell checker, but use the logic checker.
Yeah.
And I would just add to that, I think it's not only appropriate, but important if there are things missing that we specify
What
they
they need to
be
be, right.
submitted before construction is done.
Right, absolutely. Any other comments or questions?
I'd just like to comment that we were given this document, at least I got mine Saturday morning, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the 3-month period.
Yeah, well, I think the 3-month
applicant-
applies to the other.
The applicant is the one who continued the hearing and postponed. In fact, we were made aware of that postponement at the night that we showed up after we scheduled a special hearing just to hear this project. So don't tell us we've held this thing for 3 months.
If you got it Saturday, it's not because I didn't give it to you in advance of that.
I'm just saying,
because I gave it
that's
to-
when I got it.
I gave it to everybody in a PDF format, so that you could all have it on your computer, as well as the hard copies.
Mr. Chairman, I wonder if it's possible if we could have a agreed upon date by which we might get the list of things that they'd like to see responded to.
Sure.
You know, I just think that's, this whole thing comes back to me. I have to now go back and document all my notes. I mean, were you taking notes when I read these comments off, or, you know, why would it be my responsibility to dictate again to you what we need? I would hope that you made notes on what the comments were.
I actually couldn't hear them all, and some of them were engineering nature,
Okay.
so. But I think if people think something needs to be addressed, we've got to be told what they are.
You just were. We just spent 20 minutes on what needed to be addressed.
Well, we have.
And now you blankly look at us and say,
We
"Give
are
me the
on,
list."
we are on both television and we have minutes. Now, granted, the minutes are not verbatim minutes, but we are on television. We could very easily provide, I believe, a copy of the tape.
I understand what he said. I have it.
Okay, fine. Then it seems to me that if, Bill, you believe you got it, then what we'll try to do is draft an order of conditions. I would ask you and Chuck to talk to one another to make sure included in the order of conditions are all the issues that Tom has raised.
Well, do you want me to, I can do it as a supplemental document to Chuck,
Fine.
say pursuant to the
Right,
meeting
so
on,
that's fine.
to clarify these positions here,
Right,
some
absolutely.
supplemental information.
That would be fine.
I would be happy to do that.
Do I get that to Tom and make sure that it's the correct?
Well, I think you get it to all of us. You get it to all of us, PDF, send it to us as a computer enclosure, and we'll read it just to make sure it meets our understanding of what went on. Anika, you had a
I
comment.
just wanted to just comment that I do as well see both arguments here, and I do take very strongly the consideration voiced by Chuck and Tom that, this type of document and what is written in it might, be the workbook or like the tool that is used by a number of people who aren't privy to this meeting and, and don't know this discussion and the discussions we've had. So, I've been in the operations position, so I know how valuable it is, to get a clear message and say, okay, this is what I need to do. Everything I need to understand
Right.
is right here. And so, I think in the future, for this submittal, I see both sides of those arguments of, but I think for the future and having future acceptable operation and maintenance, maybe, and when people who are here now are no longer part of what's going on, the document's going to have to stand alone.
I agree.
So having a well-written, worthwhile document is an investment for them, and
it's a permanent
it's-
way of documenting what needs to be done.
and I sort of agree with Tom that, if we assume it into the order of conditions, in a way, we're sort of telling the applicant what's required. Whereas this is the,
Right. As opposed to simply
as opposed to
approving
saying.
what's required.
Exactly.
I think that, Bill, if you can present that memo to Chuck, and he will circulate it to us, we'll continue the meeting. When do you think you could have this?
So I just want to add one more thing before
Yep.
you guys continue the meeting. We're also, you guys are saying in the past, this is what we've done. Well, in the past, my position had a lot, half, again, as many hours as it does
Right.
now. How much time am I spending with Bill to put this thing out? I would say that if I had my choice, I would have documents I could point to in the order of conditions rather than rewriting the order of conditions to accommodate somebody else. This town's gone through some changes. These are great people I'm working with. They've always given me what I've needed. We've only really had 2 meetings here. I've seen them go a lot further than that. I don't know if that was...
Chuck, I would comment that, based on my experience, an order of conditions that is written and comprehensive and worked out between the commission, the administrator, and the applicant works better down the road in during the enforcement period, and in the long term saves time for the administrator. If we issue an order that the applicant doesn't understand, doesn't agree with, or does not provide all the details that they need, then it just creates more time down the road. So I think time put in up front by the applicant, the commissioner, the commission, and the administrator, time put in up front saves time down the road. So I think the more we can work with the 3 parties to get something that's mutually understood and agreed upon, the better off we are in the long term. It's been my experience.
I don't think the applicant
I would
has
agree
any
with that, but I
part
think
in
what
the
Chuck is saying is the
writing of
time
the
it
order
takes,
of
the time it's gonna take to clean this up into a set of order of conditions is time that he's losing from some other
Right, but
things
what
that he
I
maybe should be
think I
doing.
heard Bill say, unless I misheard Bill, is that he will present us his understanding of the changes that are necessary, so that Chuck doesn't have to do it. And
That will
then-
be an addendum
That's
letter
what he
that
called
gets
it. I believe
put
he
into
called it
this notice.
Supplemental, whatever you want to call it.
Response to
Yep.
concerns.
Right, and having that, it seems to me, we're back in and Chuck is back in the role of reviewing something rather than trying to negotiate. And I do agree wholeheartedly that one of the things that is at issue here, and it will be an issue as long as we have a 20-hour-a-week person, is that some of the mechanisms which we used to have the luxury of doing, which were to work things out in real time, just don't exist. There is not a 37.5-hour person here, there's a 20-hour-a-week person, and that person doesn't have the time to devote even to a large project that we formally have. Any other comments or questions?
Let's put a time frame on when I'm getting the supplement.
Yeah, Bill, when do you think you can get this to?
Happen to be going on vacation next week, so what is your next meeting?
Well, our next meeting is the 25th, which means you aren't going to make it, because you're going on vacation and there's no hope for that. The meeting after that, Chuck, is, I think, the 8th of February, at which I will not be.
So,
I won't be.
am I writing this for the 25th or for the 8th of February?
Am I right about that? Our next meeting is the 8th of February? Because Wednesday is the 1st. I won't be here, you won't be here?
I won't be here either.
Neither the chairman or the vice chairman are going to be here on the 8th.
Is everybody else gonna be here as far as they know?
Yeah.
Pardon? No, I'm in England,
Oh,
and I can't actually be here and then be in England. My
Okay.
grandson's being married on the 4th, and since it takes more than an hour and 45 minutes to go and an hour and 45 minutes to come back,
Well, we could video conference.
oh yeah, thank you.
Skype you in.
the point was I'd have the material to write the order of conditions, but Bill's leaving on vacation.
Yeah,
We'll do it to the second meeting in February,
the second meeting in February,
give everybody a
That
chance.
should be fun.
which would be the
Continue to
22nd, which is both Ash Wednesday and Washington's birthday, traditionally. So those of you who are
I'm sorry, what is the date?
Actually-
2/2, Wednesday the 22nd.
Actually, I think it's the next, I think they made it the 5th week in February.
Yeah.
Because I just wrote
Because
down,
That's a vacation week,
Vacation.
29th.
Okay,
That's what happened.
so it's the 29th,
29th, yes, fine.
and I
I had the schedule here. When I walked in and I can't find it.
Like car keys and.
I'll know.
That's all signs. There's-
And I may not
I think
actually.
that's
I'll be-
29th.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to continue the hearing until the 29th.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Very good.
Oh, I knew I had a question. Is this, sorry, is this already past the CPGC?
There's no more hearings. What they did, may be interesting to note, is they approved the preliminary with conditions, that we just go back and show them that we changed the conditions, so we don't hear anything.
29th, yeah.
So, all we're really waiting for is street address on the building. So,
When you bent over, I saw.
All right, any other
this is
comments or
signing.
questions? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
It being well after 7:20, are you people here for Harvest Road? Okay. We have a request for determination of applicability. It's actually RDA 12-1 at 7 Harvest Road. We did a drive-by.
Threw it out.
And were reminded that we had in fact done work on this house a long time ago. Are you the applicants or abutters? Neighbors?
Is the
Okay.
applicant here?
I don't know.
Pardon me?
Well, Chuck went to go look.
Have you seen the applicant here earlier this evening?
Do you like that?
I did have for the commission members, Chuck pulled
Yeah.
the order of conditions for the NOI, which was for the house.
You know, I could, this looks familiar, but I thought there was, in addition to this, a change subsequent to the original, but maybe I'm,
So this is 7 Harvest, right?
Yes.
yeah, at the time of this, there wasn't a street number.
Right.
There were lots.
Chuck, is the applicant going to be here?
The applicant should be here. I did notice earlier that he's not.
You already
Okay.
added all those in?
They are not.
Because there's a repeat
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Oh, even, yeah, did they all, oh, okay.
So is that
Yeah.
wooded,
have to go
Pull a
through.
couple
do you
out.
have this in your, you guys have this
Right, yeah.
pictorial here? So is that wooded area a wetland?
Well, no, it's Copper Bank.
Let's,
This one's continued to January
29th.
number and see if I
No,
can get someone
February
here.
It's not a hearing.
February.
Yeah.
Oh, we got some words? February.
I'm
That was in
special.
the- No, that was in the
It's not
letters. No, there's a list.
part of the letter.
I didn't notice.
There was a letter with
I didn't
two
notice
drawings.
that.
Last time they had to have
Top,
it next
top
meeting.
one is the letter.
I didn't get that
Schedule
one.
a special meeting.
There is a
And they never showed
letter.
up.
A letter or an email?
It's a letter.
2 months
It was
later.
in the packet, it's in the packet.
It's an email, actually.
Orazio.
I found it. I found
Rivera.
But they
I
don't
found
have,
it.
they don't
have a
have
copy.
time.
Here it is.
They left me out.
Get the thing right.
Oh, right. I
We
remember
drove
this one.
by
Yeah.
it Sunday.
Yep.
So, this, foundation here, it's labeled as existing concrete foundation. This was a new house that
Yes.
an NOI was
In 01-ish.
was issued for.
In 01-ish, but I think there was an amendment to that, I think.
2002, I think, there might have been an amendment. I'm going to take a point of personal privilege and powder my nose.
Please.
Since it appears we may be here for a while.
If they're not here, then why isn't it discontinued? And why are you calling them to let them know it's time to hear?
Well, that's a good question.
Well, I would think we should hold the hearing if nothing, it was still continuing, but if nothing else, to hear your comments, since you have taken the time to come out. So I would not want to continue it.
Say it's time, come in, it's down the road.
How much time should we give them? Well, it's just standard that you would continue it to the end of the hearing when it shows up. I did reach him by phone. He can, whatever it takes in Reading to get here, 10 minutes or so.
Did he say why he wasn't here?
He thought it was tomorrow night.
No.
Okay.
What are they proposing to do?
You have the,
I have this. This should tell me, right?
it should. We don't know.
Two-story addition.
A two-story addition. Well, it's a two-story house now.
Yeah.
Where's it? It's gonna go on the back, obviously.
Let's see if they have
I
a
wonder is how much
plan.
all this stuff and stuff
Wait a minute.
we have any control over.
Oh,
This is,
I think this is it, right here.
This is the best. I think that's the best picture.
The color picture?
No, the black and white
This
next to
one,
it.
this one.
One could
Yeah.
argue that only the
Best.
Yeah, but what,
Because.
I guess it shows the river.
You
The
could-
dark is the
Right.
river.
whatever.
No, I mean, you look at this, you have no idea what's going on with the resource. That's a little more clear,
Chance.
you know.
So this
23 feet from there's the edge of river there.
it's, I think it's, doesn't that say 20, I thought I read 24. That says 23, that says 24.
24 to the addition, and then 22.9 to the existing.
Right.
This is to the lot line. And then the edge of river is actually a little beyond that, but it looks like it encroaches over here.
it's just the initial.
See, I just come here to cause trouble, really.
I think this was,
Oh, it's an easement. It's an easement, so it doesn't
I'm
encroach.
the sanity check on the.
I mean,
Is it okay?
no, that,
picture.
yeah, it's, the existing building is within the 25, the existing building is within the 25-foot setback.
Yes,
That says 22.9.
that's correct.
No, it's an interesting, it is an interesting point.
I don't
though,
think the
because
new
if it-
building.
it
The new building is within the 25 also, I'm pretty sure.
has information that's outside of.
By back here, it should be, yeah.
But we're saying.
If that's the edge of river.
Yeah, I guess he's not showing us from the river, he's showing us from the property line.
Right, right.
Yeah, but the river is property line, that bank's eroded, I'm pretty sure.
it's not structured.
Previous paper, so
But it says that the river is a drainage easement. An easement across what? Across their property, right? Yeah.
It's not laid
So
out
it's
that way.
technically, the property line can go through the river if it's part of a
You know,
drainage
and I don't know
easement.
about, and he's getting more into the nitty gritty and stuff, but,
Survey's not my forte, but
yeah.
No, that can happen.
if it's an easement, then your property line could be anywhere within the easement.
I'm pretty sure this addition
Yeah.
is within 25 feet from the
I
bank.
think that's probably true. That's probably true.
In fact,
This is what they
it
provide.
seems to me that they've measured
Why
it
have we spent?
You know, and then the order conditions can
20 plus odd
talk
feet
about
from
like
the bank.
little
And this is a river, right?
variations of, say,
Oh, yeah.
This is has
It's not
riverfront.
canal.
It has
It's a
riverfront. It's not
perennial-
canal.
Perennial
This is not
stream.
a canal stretch.
plan, and so then you can go to.
Canal
Oh,
is
yeah, and the
down
plan
river.
looks good, and it's clear.
This is a real one. Should we call, you want to call hearing to order? and
You're right, I mean,
Undisturbed
it's
area.
an interesting argument.
Grass is 24 feet.
Based the owner plans from the manufacturer and changed a few things.
Chuck, do we think we're going to have the applicant arrive at some point?
Yes.
I heard what you said briefly, but I couldn't quite.
Okay, so I've called the applicant who said that he mistakenly thought it was Thursday night for the meeting, and he'll be right down. So, I don't know when the.
We want to talk
path
about it
history-
before, or can we do
How
that?
far
Is
away
that
is far?
kosher?
Can't be more than 3.5 miles.
We could,
It's one stoplight.
Nothing, anything in writing.
Can we go to some other business and allow him to
Yes.
present it so we don't
Sure.
have to assume?
Yeah.
Sorry
for the additional wait.
Things to do.
There should be a few minutes.
We do have,
so if, you could open it and continue it to the end of the meeting, or continue it to,
well, it's not a public hearing, it's a RDA, right?
it is an RDA with a time.
But we don't
Yeah, but
have,
we don't have to meet that time, we
We
just
don't
can't
have
do
to
it
meet that.
before
We
that
just can't
time.
do it before that.
Do we have anything that comes before it? I don't.
Well, the only thing we've got is we've got approval of
Minutes.
minutes, and unless you had any site visits, we could talk about the site visits. I'm sorry to put you through this, but
It's, I mean, he's been here since 7, he should have been here. He knew it, he wrote us a letter.
just didn't pay attention, he didn't read his letter. Okay, we have the minutes for November 30. Are there any additions, corrections, or emendations?
It's November 30, the one I chaired.
I didn't see any problem.
Yes.
I read them, I have no addition.
I have no comments.
Okay.
the only comment I have
I approve them, I second that.
was at the end of the last thing, bylaw discussion.
Yep.
And we talked about it at the last meeting. I don't remember variances being stated that it would be, I thought there were two topics we were gonna discuss in bylaw discussion. That was vernal pools and wildlife definition, and I don't remember
you're right.
variances.
I think you're right, Tom.
All right, take the word variances out. Vernal pool, wildlife definition, and vernal pools, okay? Those of you who were at the meeting are eligible to attest to this, so I will absent myself. However, you've made a motion to accept them,
I seconded.
okay? All those in favor?
As corrected.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I will abstain only because I wasn't here. Okay, and let's do the December 14th minutes. Any additions, corrections, or emendations?
I wasn't here, so I can't.
Entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay.
I wasn't here either.
I wasn't
Yeah,
there
and
either.
I wasn't either, Kim, so.
Yeah, so it's four.
So 4,
Oh, it's only
or
3.
5,
No, it's
no, 4.
I'm here.
You're here?
Yes, I was at that. I chaired it. Believe it or not.
I was not here.
Yes, we noticed that. Okay. Gentleman from Harvest Road? Yes. Okay, fine. We have a request for determination of applicability. It's 12-1, 7 Harvest Road, map 23, lot 3. Tell us what you wish to do.
We're looking to put this small addition on the back of the house, just to make ourselves more space. I got a family, I got a son. We want to stay in the town of Reading. We looked around for a house to buy, and there's nothing out there. So we got the land in the back. I know it's conservation land, but if we can make it a little more, you know, a little smaller, help put some bushes up there and trees up there, so we don't damage much conservation land. Nothing too huge. I mean, you should have the drawings and the plans on how big it's gonna be. Just something to give myself a little more space, because I live on the slab, I have no basement. And my son just had Christmas, so you guys know how that is. He's got plenty of toys now. We just need a little more space to store some stuff.
Okay.
Just a point of clarification, that's actually not conservation land, it's land protected by the Wetlands Protection Act,
Okay.
which is different than,
Okay.
excuse me, conservation land.
And in this particular case, Mr. Guevara, that particular site is covered by both the local bylaw and also the state, because it is technically a river, even though many people would consider it to be a river. It is a river. It is a river by virtue of the fact that it is perennial, namely it flows all the time, it doesn't dry up ever. And the area that it drains is sufficiently large to meet certain standards that the state has for riverfront. except for a 200-foot stretch of it. The question really is, obviously, this would be covered under both the local bylaw and the state Wetlands Protection Act. When that house was built, we did have a series of public hearings to permit the house itself. And there were essentially some variances issued to enable that house to be built on that particular site. And I've asked for copies of the order of conditions for that particular thing to be handed out to the commission.
Are there any additional copies?
It should be.
It was on your, at your table, should have been at your.
Oh, you're right.
So, I don't like to play hurry up
It
and
looks
wait.
like this.
Okay, sorry.
But given that we didn't get a chance to get this in advance, it may take us a couple of minutes to review these documents.
I have had a chance to take a look at it, and finding number 4 is critical. And finding number 10 and 11 are both critical also.
Can I ask quickly what date this went into effect?
Pardon me?
Can I ask what
Well,
date
we
this
issued
went
it-
into effect?
That's a good question.
202.
2002.
Do we have a date or?
2003, the letter of the order of condition, January 9th, 2003, the letter went out.
And the work was completed in something like 05 or 06.
I purchased the house in '05.
05.
So, it was done for around that time then.
Were you the original owner?
Well, I bought it from the contractor guy. I'm the only one that's lived there so far.
You were the first occupant?
Yes.
Were you at the hearings for this?
No, the guy who built it, he built it, and I saw it in the market, and I bought it from him.
Jamie, you want to go over those points you think are critical?
Well, I just think that what's critical is that this was less than the minimum setback.
Right.
And we allowed it because this lot was small,
Right.
but it wasn't that simple because 2 lots were combined to create this lot.
Right.
But by combining 2 lots, you got more area, but you didn't get any farther from the river.
Right.
That was the issue.
I'm sorry, what, the 2 lots?
I believe 2 lots were combined.
Right. What?
To make this long, narrow lot?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
There were
okay.
2 short, narrow lots.
Okay, no, I understand now. I didn't know if there was.
Now we have
Yeah.
one
Long.
long, narrow lot.
Right.
If that makes sense. So a variant, although this doesn't specify a variance, there was a variance issued because
Right.
we're less than 25 feet.
Right.
Also, there's as we know from the beaver discussion and everything else we've been through, that bank is very unstable. And that was an issue here and a big concern here.
Right, and we did have some added bank stabilization,
We had
as I
some
recall.
added bank stabilization, and I don't know this for a fact, but I think that has stabilized the bank in that section, but we can see in other sections of the river, the bank isn't stable. And when you protect one section of the bank, the problem moves upstream and downstream.
Yeah.
Hydrology tells
Help me
you
out
that.
with something. I'm looking at this critical item number 4 that you said.
Right.
And it says that the foundation of the house will be 17 feet from the upper edge of the bordering vegetated wetland.
Right.
So if he wants to put an addition, isn't that just going to go smack onto the bordering?
Because
No,
if you
it's
look
back.
at if you look at
Back
the
4 feet.
proposed
Yeah.
plan,
Building
Yeah.
parallel.
he's basically building at the rear of the house.
Okay.
So it seems to me that, first of all,
Oh, I'm sorry. So it's in the different, yeah, okay.
yeah, it's in a different location.
Okay.
The other issue that's afoot here really is the setback from, the side setback, if you will, from
Okay.
the the drainage easement or the river in this case.
Okay.
So that's a good point, Brian. This drawing
I know
shows,
that, but, I see it.
Stream is over here.
the drawing shows a
Okay.
distance
Active
of
stream, okay.
roughly
Gotcha.
23 feet from what could be the river, but the
Oh, yeah.
condition says it's 17 feet. So I think the bordering vegetation wetland actually comes within the property. So if you use those figures, that's 5 feet less than, this addition is really going to be only 20 feet from the bordering vegetated wetland.
Right. That-
Yeah, I think there's a line, an additional line that should be on here, the BVW line.
Right.
We
We can approximate it, but it's approximately 5 feet, 5 to 6
I
feet
see what you're
inside
saying.
the property
Yeah.
line.
Right.
So I reviewed this a little bit, and I might be able to get you guys a little more insight on it. I think you passed this or were able to accept it because it was a lot recorded before August 7th, 1996.
Right.
And it only needs
Riverfront
to
Act.
meet the standards to the maximum extent practicable.
Right.
And this is what they did.
Right.
There's a 5,000 square foot alteration calculation in there. I think that's the one, the one thing that's going to prove this next project where we are with that 5,000 square feet, or 10% of the riverfront area, whichever one's larger you can use. Going through this, Fran, in number 7 talks about having a
The
consultant come
finding
out there.
7 or condition?
It's like
Finding
two number
7.
7s in the front. It's very in the front.
The finding. then.
It's a finding.
Yep. Talking about a consultant
Right.
coming back out there, and
Right.
they did some bank restoration.
Right.
Right.
And through that restoration, she thought this was an improvement, and then
Right.
they could allow the project because ultimately it would improve
Improve the riverfront.
riverfront.
Right.
And that's where it came through. And there was one more thing that I found that
Sure.
during the process of going through the application and talking to the committee, the house was moved 7.5 feet away from that riverfront.
Right.
So
What ended up happening is the bank was stabilized. There was a coir log that was actually laid in at the foot of the slope of the bank. Must have been there for 18 months, if not 2 years, while the bank was revegetating. So that was what enabled the house to be built in that location.
And there were plantings, it wasn't just natural.
And there were,
beach
no, there was
vegetation.
plantings, and there were also some plantings to the side of the house, as I believe, above the bank.
yeah, so number 3, 10.5.8, number 3, and she references B, but it basically, this is what you allowed them to have, 10.5.8, number 3, notwithstanding the provisions. The issuing authority shall allow the construction of a single-family house with a septic system if it can't be, if the septic sewage is not available, and a driveway on a lot.
Right.
That house
recorded.
doesn't have a septic
Yeah.
system, I don't think.
They can
Town
do
sewer.
either or, but they're probably on town sewer.
It's on town.
We're on top
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
So you kept to that standard.
It would exactly
Would have
do
been.
that. But just to follow up on what Chuck said and what Bill said, the construction of this house was originally allowed, even though it's required a variance, because the lot was so narrow.
Right.
Well, it was allowed because of the standard, that standard that I referenced.
Right. It was allowed because of the fact that the lot was created prior to 96, number 1, and number 2, because in fact, we determined that there was a bank improvement possible.
Yeah.
And
That was critical.
that satisfied the conditions that enabled us to grant a variance for the
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to, if we could remember, if it was documented, those 3 conditions to get a variance. The alternatives, the public good, and I forgot what the third one was. Do you remember, Tom?
Reading it right now, mitigating measures.
Yeah,
We got the mitigating
mitigating measures. The question of the public good, I think, was obviated by the fact that the lot had qualified under the pre-96 rules.
Right.
So-
And also the mitigation might be public good. So I mean, I'm still comfortable with original construction.
Right. Yeah, I wanted to review this simply because I think I wanted us all to be comfortable with the.
Yeah, oh, definitely, absolutely.
Original construction. Now, that brings us to the question of adding to the property.
Well, can I ask a quick question
Sure,
first? Was this
anything.
ever completed? I mean, do
Yeah,
you have to
yeah, the
file a
house is
certificate of
built.
compliance
Yeah,
for
the
this?
the house is
Oh,
built,
yeah.
we did issue a certificate of
We
completion.
did.
Compliance, rather, and as you saw on Sunday, we did a brief drive-by.
Yeah.
We did not try to inspect the property or look at the.
Have you noticed any erosion of that bank?
Me, since I've been there, no. It looks exactly the same. And I lined it with bushes all down the side of the house to help, from the water going down. We put stone dust down to make sure the water drains into the ground, try to keep from going down there.
You did that after the original
Yes, I
construction?
did that myself. So, I mean, I have landscapers come by all the time to try to keep it clean, keep all the stuff out of there, from my stuff going into there. I mean, we do the best we can to help it, but I have not noticed any, more wear and tear. And we've had a couple of those high rivers, since those couple of storms I've been there the last 5 years, and I've had no problems.
Yeah, the combination of the storms and the beavers.
Yeah, just to remind the commission, it's the same water body downstream 50 yards where the bank washed out and
Right.
DPW had to go and rebuild their
Rebuild the bank.
sidewalk and all that stuff.
And I can't remember whether that was upstream or downstream.
It was upstream.
It was upstream.
It's upstream.
Yeah, I think so.
Have you been out there, Chuck?
I have not.
To the rear of the addition, in the green area here, that it says
Yep.
new grass.
Yep.
And to the top of that sheet where it says newly planted, I would assume that means to be planted.
Yes.
Shrubs and landscape.
Yeah.
What is that now? Is that wooded area?
It's just wooded area, yes.
So it's what size trees and I guess
Probably, I think they're not that strong. I mean, they're little skinny trees back there, nothing too huge.
and it's just natural vegetation down on the ground cover, leaves. And
That might have been some of the area we required planting.
We did require some planting in that area. Chuck, I think what would also be useful for us, we have the.
You required 150 feet of planting.
Okay.
Oh,
150.
110 feet.
110
Sorry.
feet.
Of linear parallel to the bank.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I'm trying to figure out how much of the lot that is, and I have a scale.
It's 110 feet, and the
Is there a
lot is
scale here?
no, but the lot originally is 223, so roughly half of the total lot we required planting on that side.
Okay, and it would have been the front half, obviously.
Yeah, it would have been the forward half of it,
Yeah.
where the house is.
and those plants are still there.
They
We
were.
didn't do a formal site visit, Tom, so I'm assuming they are, but
I checked it out on 2 satellite sources, and it looks quite nicely vegetated
Yeah.
on that bank.
yeah, my memory, and this is from a long time ago when we issued the certificate of compliance,
They were doing fine.
they were doing fine, and they were verdant and doing well. And the bank area was substantially more stable in that location than it
Yeah.
had been prior. Or it is in a lot of other parts of it. Well, I guess, as I see this, the point for the commission is, do we wish the applicant to proceed with a notice of intent? Because in fact, if we will consider this in some form or other as an addition, we would need a notice of intent given the condition.
Right, I agree with that.
Is not going to do it. The only comments I would make are there obvious things that we would require in an NOI that the RDA does not present us? I think the issue of where the BVW is, and I guess the only other question I would have is whether we want to hew to the standard of a requirement of it being a minimum of 25 feet from the property line.
Well, they would have to apply for a variance. Oh, the property line.
Right. And what I'm arguing is that if it's at least 25 feet from the property line, the addition,
So
then
he's coming up with 24.4.
right.
From the property line.
Yeah,
But we think it's less than that from the bordering vegetated wetland.
okay.
We think.
Well, we're reasonably
Off the
sure
bank,
it is. And so I guess the question is, number one, would we want it to be a minimum of 25 feet? And number two, we'd have to consider it. If we wanted it to be a minimum of 25 feet, we'd still have to consider it a variance.
Yeah.
Why would
Because our normal structure is 35.
Right, you're right.
Okay.
Well, is this 7.5 feet, is that required by zoning on the other side?
Well-
That's their issue. Yeah.
Well, I don't know what the side setback is, but obviously the idea would be to line it up with the back of the house.
Well, if let's say if they could move it and it didn't line up and get 25 feet away, that from the bordering vegetated wetlands, we're in a little bit different situation.
Well, there was already a variance granted for this, so we'd probably have to
Yes.
look at what that variance included. And 7.5 that's an awfully odd setback.
It is.
It's usually 10 or
10.
15
Right,
or
and
20.
the reason we picked that, Tom, I think, was that the attempt was to make the distance between the side of the house and the existing top of bank as large as possible.
No, I know, but we don't control whether we can get a zoning board of appeals
No, I-
variance.
I
So
agree.
I
They
think
did
there needs
have
to
a-
be a little bit of
Right.
conjunction.
There was a court
conjunction
case,
here.
yeah, there was a court case on this, which surrounded the question of combining the two lots, which was not a conservation issue, it was a zoning or zoning board of appeals issue. Yeah, I'm sure the public has some questions or comments. Let me see questions from commissioners.
Just, yeah, quick question. So I'm looking at this picture.
Yep.
And I'm looking at these pictures down here, sort of the aerial views, photographs with large rectangles drawn in. And I'm trying to understand, is this your property line?
It goes from what Harvest Road is down to the other road that's there with Flush Off.
So that's this line right here?
Yes.
Even though the Harvest Road is dashed and outside of your property line over here?
Yeah, so I have a driveway, the property line. He has a driveway in there too. See you put a
Yeah.
driveway at the end? That,
Yeah.
right where the driveway ends, that's where my property line is.
Okay.
Right where that's a street.
Okay, so this box down here is actually more than your property? Because I'm trying to figure out,
I think one would be the layout line of the roadway, and the other would be the paved width of the roadway.
But your property does not
But
go
I-
across the river.
No.
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 Whereas this
okay,
looks
that's
like
what I
it
was trying
does.
to
Yeah, I think they were
understand.
just, my guess, and this is my guess,
Well,
is that they were outlining the site rather than trying to.
to
Scale it.
mimic the
Those are not
property line
distinct, right.
on this.
My
Because I
brother-
looked at that and I was thinking, that's their property line, wait a minute, doesn't match.
I think it's just saying, this is where the house, this is where the,
Well,
in general, the property is.
Right,
It's not-
because
it doesn't
obviously
define
in
lines.
the,
The top
So-
part, the colored part in the top there, that's
Those
the
are
property
actual
line.
Yeah,
That's the
that's-
actual.
That's clear to me, but when,
I think down
You know-
there, he was just kind of showing areas of the house down the
Yeah.
bottom.
I just wanted to make sure, because obviously I'm concerned with the water resources here, and I just want to understand if this canal
He's
is
actually-
this line?
He's right
Or
here.
is somewhere in
That's
between
what's
your
the property line,
house?
Russ.
Do you know what I mean?
The bottom, he's the one actually took the picture and drew it. He's the architect. He can explain to you that with that bottom box.
Hi, how are you?
Sorry I'm late.
That's okay. Do you want to submit your name for
Orazio
purpose?
Guevara, I'm
Okay.
the brother of the homeowner, Eladio Guevara.
Okay.
I prepared the design drawings as well.
Okay, this line is not the property line, correct?
No, that's just indicating it on that.
The general area,
yeah.
okay. So the river there is approximately within that 40-foot drainage easement?
Yes.
Plus, it probably also includes bank also within that? I mean, is it sort of roughly? I mean, I'm trying to get a sense of where the river is
That's based on
exactly.
the as-built of, from the engineer. That wasn't any site measurements that we did, and
Yeah.
the erosion and so on.
Yeah.
But the brown indicates the property line.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand where that property line is respective to the river, and how close, and, you know, that sort
And
of.
Yeah.
It's also very
It
clear,
looks
I
like,
think, that
yeah,
we're-
oh, go on, sorry.
we're going to have to do a site visit simply to get a sense of the remainder of the property, the state of the situation, the condition of the bank, and so on. But I think it seems to me that the one item we really want to pursue, and I'll open it to the public in a minute, is the question of would we entertain an addition on this property, subject to some change, because obviously, if we would not, it doesn't make any sense to spend the money to go through a notice of intent, okay?
My concern is how could one demonstrate the public good?
Well, I think the only issue in terms of public good here would be additional bank restoration. Because we asked for 110 feet of plantings the last time, which seemed to have thrived. So the question is, we could inspect the bank, we could see whether additional plantings would between the addition and the river, would add to the filtering effects for that water body.
I could see how that would be help, but again, I'm concerned that you improve, stabilize the bank in one stretch.
Right.
And that river's gonna take double the effect somewhere else on the bank. And just, I can't remember, which is the Track Road Bridge?
That's the closed.
Still, Track Road's closed, right? But, and Harvest is open, right? Both of them are closed.
Right.
There's just another point that the commission ought to be aware of. DPW is considering, and they got a long way to go before they get there, but they're considering removing one or both of those bridges or repairing them because they can't stay like they are forever.
Right.
Moving would help with
Moving,
flow
it would help with flow.
and velocity.
And stabilization as well. Okay, let me open it up to the public. Questions, comments? Please introduce yourself before you do that, so you have it for the record.
Well, Paul McDonald, I live at 39 Line Road, and I'm in direct abutter. And I know these are basically conservation issues, and I thought that the 25-foot minimum was going to be one thing that would work, let's say, in my favor or against Mr. Guevara's favor. I've noticed some erosion on the part of the property that he doesn't have fenced in from those two enormous storms we had. We had one in here, I've forgotten how, 02, and we had a couple of 8-inch rainstorms. And there seems to be more erosion away from where they're currently planted. But I've never done a measurement.
Yeah. And we certainly wouldn't, I mean, we're interested in your observations, and as you've heard, we're all concerned about the 25-foot distance as well, which is why we would need to do a site visit. And other comments?
Well, other comments would probably be directed at, if you want to call it the public good, and you called me the public.
You certainly are part of it.
It certainly can come down to the quality of life issues for me, as the neighbors on either side of me, all three of us, but their properties.
25-foot-high building covering 7 feet from my property line is not why I moved to Reading and why I have the house that I have. Like I said, these might not be specifically your issues, but they're certainly mine.
Yeah, but my guess, and this is not a blissfully ignorant of the planning and zoning issues, okay? And I wish to stay that way as long as possible, since I have enough trouble with the conservation issues. It seems to me that should there be a plan that's acceptable to the commission, meeting the 25-foot setback, et cetera, perhaps increasing plantings on the bank side, there would still be the question of what planning and zoning would do with respect to an addition, okay?
I understand that.
Yeah, so while
I'm not sure this has to go for planning and zoning. If they meet the setback.
well, that's the question, do they?
I don't think so for
they don't.
private residents. Unless it's a variance from the
There's a
zoning setback.
There's a setback to the adjoining, to neighboring properties. It's 15, I think it's 15 feet. There must have been a variance on that as well.
Yeah, if they need a variance, then it does that.
So it's this is a narrow lot. It's,
I mean,
yeah.
it would seem to me, and again, I'm not, and we've got some more digging and research to do here on our part of the deal, but it would seem to me that should there be an acceptable plan, the fact that there's only a 7.5-foot setback, I'm positive, well, I'm almost positive, then that the zoning folks had to approve that limited distance from the property line when the house was first built.
Correct.
And therefore, if there was an addition, they would have to meet the current zoning setbacks from side lot lines, or seek a variance from planning and zoning. So I'm not, your concerns.
That sounds right.
Yeah, that sounds correct to me, but I plead absolute ignorance, and I wish to stay that way about zoning issues because I have basically enough gray hair from dealing with conservation. Other comments from
Can I bring up one
Sure,
other thing?
absolutely.
This is on the attachment, the order of conditions. I know, I thought you had
Yes,
copies of that.
we do.
Earlier, and under, I just looked this up today, under A3 on page 18.
On page 18, hold on, let's catch up with you.
Yep.
Okay, I'm there.
In previous pages, it was called the site.
Right.
Because,
Right.
it was that double lot. And the wording I see is the site is and shall remain subject to the following perpetual deed restriction in perpetuity. The site is, quitclaim deed granted.
Right.
All right.
We're on it.
Subject to the following deed restrictions. All owners of the conveyed premises, their heirs, successors, yada yada, maintain in perpetuity in an unobstructed manner the zone of natural vegetation.
Right.
Right.
That zone of natural vegetation is a specified area 25 feet from the wetlands.
Yeah.
That's defined by the regulations.
And what this references is that the new plantings which were placed on the bank of the house between the house and the river, not any vegetation between the property line and your property. It strictly references the new plantings on the riverside, if you will, of the house must be maintained. And the restriction, as I understand it, is mute on the question of should they come back and ask for additional work on the property, that would be the subject of an additional hearing, which is what we're starting, the process we're starting.
This is not relative to the rest of their property.
That's correct.
That's right.
It's just that strip along the river.
And just to clarify it a bit more, what we had mandated was that they plant roughly half of the lot on the riverside with plantings. The lot's roughly 220 feet. We went for 110 foot of plantings along the riverside. does not essentially mandate that the back of the lot can't be built on or anything else. All it says is that the zone of natural vegetation, which is conservation jargon for the space protecting the water body, okay, must be maintained. Is that clarified? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
I live 33 Line Road.
Yes. And your name?
My house, Christine Miller.
Okay.
In '02, when this all started, my house was burned down. My house sat this way on my property.
Mm-hmm.
You guys made me turn my house this way to get further away from the
Right.
creek.
Right.
Why should they be able to move closer to the creek? And I had to, completely turn my home around.
Yeah.
The woman that did that home actually threatened me because I came to these meetings and stuff to try to stop her from building. And she said that if I didn't stop coming to the meetings, she was going to give me a hard time about replacing my home that was there. So, what my thing is, how did she get the approval to do that? I couldn't come back to these meetings, or my house would never have been through. It probably took me 3 years to put my house back up with me and my 3 kids.
All I can tell you is I don't know anything about the exchange between you and whoever told you.
Okay, but my situation, like I said, my house was this way when it burned.
Right.
This way.
And
you guys made me turn this way, so I was further away from the...
And the difficulty we have with this particular lot, okay, and again, there was a court case which mandated that the planning and zoning people permit a house on the lots, one house on both lots. Having been, if you will, the commission, having been stuck with that decision, and not having, the question is, what can you do with the property that's far too narrow? Okay, and there are 3 or 4 issues that we chose to look at. One of them was that because the lot was approved as a pair of lots well before 1996, which was when the wetland standards changed, the riverfront standards changed, we were not permitted to say you can't do anything with that lot. Then the question became, well, what can you build on it, and how do you protect as much of the riverfront as you can while still abiding by the fact that there was a court case saying you have to permit a house to be built. Okay. The difference, and it's a tragic difference because you lost your original home, is best illustrated by some houses on Van Norden Road. And it's not extraneous. There are 3 houses. The one in the end, the homeowner decided to buy that lot. His 2 neighbors have 75, maybe 80-foot, maybe even 120-foot back grass lawns. Because he chose to have that house and tear it down, he fell under the new rules rather than the old rules. And the new rules require you, and this is what happened in your case as I understand it, is because your home burned, and therefore it was not a house being rebuilt. It was essentially starting from ground zero.
Right, the foundation was there.
Right.
Tore the house down.
Right. The difficulty was, what do you do about that, in which case, unfortunately, the rules of the game are you're stuck with the new rules. And the new rules are you try to move as far away from the wetland as possible. In truth, if this property had come under the later rules, there would be no way to build anything on it. But because it is prior to 96, and there was this court case mandating planning and zoning to allow the construction of one dwelling on the 2 lots, that's, if you will, the conditions we as a commission were stuck with. So that's how it got here. And again, the difficulty is whenever you know, for whatever reason, in your case a tragic one, losing a house to a fire is a terrible thing, you start all over again with the new rules. It may not be fair, may not be reasonable, but like a lot of life, it is what it is. Are there other questions? Okay, I think that the question that the commission has to wrestle through, and perhaps we would like to do a site visit before we even try to wrestle through it, is, you know, would we consider a proposal on this property for an expansion, and therefore require a notice of intent, or would we not? Because if we wouldn't, it seems silly and fruitless, and I'm sure disappointing to the applicant if we would say, gee, there's no way we would consider that. My sense is, that at least, and this is just me, I would want to do a site visit before I make
At the
things.
very least, I would.
I think that's only fair to the house.
Yeah, I would like to do a site visit too, and I agree with everything you say, but I would just like to voice that there is a fairly high hurdle to get over here.
Right.
We're in the riverfront.
Right.
We're within the setback. That river has caused us
All kinds of grief.
all kinds of grief.
Grief for many of the
All
abutters and
kinds
many of the people who live on it. I mean,
So just, I think doing site visit's the right thing to do, but there is a high hurdle to get over to demonstrate that that's in compliance with the regulations.
I would agree, as well as there's 19 pages of conditions here, and we've talked about 3 of them, or 4 of them.
yeah. Have you seen the conditions?
11.
It starts on
Okay,
8.
fine.
They always start on page like 7.
Great, yeah. I mean, only
It's still
because
still a sizable amount of pages.
they're
don't get me
appended
wrong.
to a document that's,
Yeah.
And I just wanted to
Yes,
comment,
Amy?
just as a point of information, in finding one, the second to last sentence at the bottom of that paragraph, it said the ZBA did grant them a variance, the developer, to permit a 7.5-foot setback.
Right, good, thank you.
So, you know,
there was that variance granted,
so I'm
which
sure if that was.
indicates that it'd have to be another variance if there
Exactly.
was a 7.5.
That's correct. Yep.
Exactly.
Well, it seems to me that although this is not a hearing, we need to continue this to our next meeting, simply because I don't think we can do anything without seeing the site. And our,
Can I just add one thing? If you guys-
absolutely.
I visited with Chuck on this property about 6 months ago, and we saw how difficult it would be to even approach putting an addition on the house. Prior to meeting with Chuck, over the last year, my brother and I have been searching for real estate in the surrounding towns. He currently owns Mario's Pizza. He's a local business owner, and he wants to stay, obviously, in this area. His cover letter explains clearly. So, you know, he mentioned it to me, you know, even before they had the baby. I said, the last thing you want to do is put an addition on this home. And there's another basement, a bachelor pad, and that's what he bought it for. And now he's married, he's got his new baby, and I'm sure he wants another one on the way. So that's where we're at today. We understand there's a big hurdle to jump. And, you know, there's a lot of issues with the abutting neighbors and things that they had to go through. So, you know, we're not, you know, holding our breath, but at the same time, we're also willing to make the addition smaller. We're open to making it 1 story. We're open to making it skinnier, you know, I mean, it doesn't have to be that size.
Well, I think, yeah, I think all those are good things, and I think what we would want to do, simply because literally, it wasn't on our site visit schedule for Sunday. We meet on Sunday mornings only because there's no light in the evening, and therefore trying to see anything at 6 o'clock at night requires headlamps and floodlights and those kinds of things. So I make it that our next site visit would likely be on Sunday the 22nd, and I would urge Chuck to put it on that site visit. We will next be meeting on the 25th of January, unless I've gotten my calendar screwed up for January, which I don't think I have.
Yes, it's on the
January
25th.
25th, yeah.
So it would seem to me that rather than try to conclude the matter tonight, because I don't think we have enough information, we would continue the hearing, well, continue the discussion, because it's not a hearing, until the 25th, and make the site visit on the 22nd.
And if it's possible, prior to that site visit, put just a couple stakes showing approximately where that addition would be. That would make our job a little easier.
It's basically the fenced area.
Yeah.
The existing fenced area is the.
Okay, great.
And again, go ahead.
The other thing, if you can consider the pervious pavers in the driveway. It's been an issue with the stroller and his wife,
Sure.
obviously. Wintertime, it's a disaster.
Yeah, we certainly love pervious pavers. It turns out that the town engineer has a different problem with pervious pavers, simply because it doesn't, we actually have argued that solution in a number of areas. So I'm not, again, I can't speak for the commission, but I think in general, we tend to be pro-pervious pavers rather than anti. Gravel is a little more pervious, there's no question, but you know, when you get to be my age, gravel's a lot harder to walk on too. You don't have to be in a stroller in order to have gravel a problem. Anika?
I guess I just wanted to voice whether anybody else in the commission believes they have sufficient information to vote on this particular RDA tonight. Knowing the proximity, knowing the history of the development and the stated setbacks that were already part of the existing construction. I mean, granted, we don't have an exact plan that shows the exact distance to resource areas. The applicant is asking us whether whether the proposed work is within the jurisdiction, and I mean, there was brief mention of high hurdles. I mean, it would, although it would be good to see what's going on out there right now, I'm not sure any visual evidence would change the evidence in the order of conditions about setbacks and jurisdiction and what would be required to be submitted
within our
to this
jurisdiction.
work.
Okay,
Right.
so if we were really to simply say, is it within our jurisdiction, obviously. The only reason I'm asking for a site visit, or suggesting a site visit, is that the next step, namely the filing of an NOI, is a reasonably expensive step.
I just wanted to mention that I guess I perceive the next step is voting whether or not we have a positive or a negative determination.
Well,
It's their
that's right.
decision
And I
to
think
whether they want to pursue an NOI.
I think we have plenty of information now
what I mean?
to vote a positive determination. I don't think there's any question about that. But I think what we're suggesting is, before we do that, let's go ahead and take a look at it so that when we do vote that positive determination, we can let the applicant know, if you file a notice of intent with these changes, it has a chance of succeeding, or no matter what you do, there's no chance of succeeding.
Yeah,
I think that's what we're trying to do.
That-
But you're right. We
You're
can
right.
vote
I mean,
a positive determination right now. if there's any
We
question.
certainly have enough information to vote a positive determination.
Okay.
What I don't feel comfortable with would be the conditions. Okay? And normally, when we issue a positive determination, we often, we don't always, I mean, if it's straightforward and it's positive, negative determination, it's not a problem. If it's positive determination, we often have a substantial list of conditions. Given the nature of what the history is and given the nature of the property, there would undoubtedly be a substantial list of conditions. And I'm at a bit of a loss, and you know me, I'm almost never at a loss to say something, but I'm at a loss to think this one through without seeing the property.
Well, you say things when you're at a loss to think things through. That's not.
I said I'm never at a loss to say these things, never at a loss.
Can we not vote on this?
We could.
But without conditions, and then the conditions we're gonna have to apply later on anyway, so.
Well,
it's gonna be continued one way or the other, but.
Well, I'm not sure that we would condition something that we're not going to accept as the final document. I think we would vote that it's a positive, and
Right.
it requires.
And requires an
NOI.
NOI.
And that's
Right,
it.
exactly, so that's.
And
Right.
then we
Right.
make a field visit as a courtesy, go out, give an opinion on the NOI should include these types of things.
Right.
There should be some justification to, for the requests on certain parts, the variance and different things like that, and then a decision made on whether that level of effort wants to be done and everything else. But I don't think we'd condition something that we're not ultimately going to accept as the document.
Yeah.
Right, I would agree with that, but I think the advantage of continuing this and go and make a site visit, we can come back in a public forum with the neighbors and the abutters present and have this discussion and let them know our opinions and what, if any, conditions we would have. If we go to positive determination tonight, then the matter's closed officially.
Yeah,
And there'd be no more public exposure.
It's the only way an applicant can really get the, you know, the understanding of what the commission wants is to file, you know, some sort of application.
Right.
And this one is a lot cheaper than the
Right.
next.
Right. And
So
again,
to take that additional step, like Jamie says, is part of the original intent here.
Okay.
I wholeheartedly agree with both of you. We could vote a positive determination. Positive determination, by the way, for those of you in the public, simply means that in order to go any further, they would have to file a notice of intent, which is a much more lengthy and expensive document. The only reason we're looking to go visit the property is to inform ourselves as to whether there are any conditions under which we would consider a positive response to a notice of intent. It's simply the issue of saying, almost no matter what you do, you know, the hurdle, it's Mount Everest, you're not going to get over it. You're not going to throw your paper airplane over Mount Everest. If, on the other hand, as a result of the site visit, we have a bunch of conditions making the addition smaller, reducing its height, you know, perhaps making it longer, a variety of possibilities, extra plantings. Those are all things that I think, looking at the ground truth, as they say, would inform the commission. Okay. I don't think it's going to change the question that if we were forced to vote tonight, we would say it's a positive determination, which means no work can be done until we have a more formal notice of intent. Is that clear?
Whereas a negative...
No, a negative determination, it turns out...
If they go out to the site and it's...
This is one of... No, this is one of those situations in which everyone who comes to give us an RDA wants us to vote no. Because if you vote a negative determination, it means there's not a problem. Okay, and we know...
You don't need a permit.
And you don't need a permit. We know that in this case, yes, I know. Don't ask me, I didn't write the rules. I find it... it took me 6 months of serving on the commission almost 10 years ago to figure out that when we voted no, we were actually saying yes.
No means yes.
Yeah.
Like the rules are not applicable, it's negative, you get a negative determination.
Right,
So
and I frequently, when an applicant is seeking an approval of something which doesn't require a permit, I warn them in advance that we're about to vote no, but you want us to in this case. Okay, so it's bass backwards, as we used to say.
We're not voting no, though.
No.
We're voting and defining it as a negative determination.
Right.
And it's...
Right.
Yeah, well, in
this
the
case,
sense that the
in
terms
the
that he's
sense I was
trying to
explaining.
explain, yeah. So
Yeah.
we're not voting no in order to get, we're voting that it is a negative determination, meaning that there is no impact.
Right.
We're voting not.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
One more comment. I
Yes.
think we as a board, when we do go out there, need to be careful that we put forward some comments about what performance standards that we would want to be met, and not offer our opinion of how the house might be sited or different things might be done.
I think
That's
I
up
think
for
this-
the applicant to determine based on what we feel the importance of performance standards that they need to meet.
Right. I think this is one of those site visits in which, you know, we need to be sensitive to, and you need to be sensitive to the fact that we're going to make some observations, and we can't actually give you any determinations until we have our additional hearing. Okay.
Could I, it mentions in the order that there was a as-built plan that should have been done. I wonder, Chuck, is that in the file? Because it
I think I've
seems
seen
like it
that.
would
I've seen
offer...
that as-built in one.
There
Very
is an
valuable
as-built.
document to go.
Yeah, this one here would include this zone of natural vegetation, the bounds, the grading,
That would be
those types of things. It would be really helpful to try to go out and locate and help us stay within, you know, what was supposed to have been done.
Yeah. Chuck, can you make a couple copies of that for us?
We put it in our next package.
Do you want to look at it now? It's two,
Well-
at least two.
It'd be done
Why don't
in
you
our
just
package.
make a couple copies and send it to us it'll be much simpler. So,
It's not off the top shelf.
okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, we're going to do a site visit on the 22nd. We will make observations. We will meet again on the 25th. And welcome the abutters to join us, as well as anybody else who feels an interest.
So do we continue the meeting?
Well, since it's a meeting, not a hearing, we don't have to continue it. We
just
are
put it on the
essentially
agenda.
putting it on the agenda for our next meeting, okay?
Tabling it till next meeting.
Pretty much.
Which is January 25.
25. Right.
And are we gonna go there first?
Yes,
Yeah.
the 22nd.
Okay.
Sunday, the 22nd, will be on our site visit.
Any specific time?
Sometime after
We do
9.
our site visits between 9 and probably 11 o'clock. And in all honesty, it's awful hard to give you any more precise time than that, simply because we just don't know what's on the agenda for next time around. But I think what we can certainly do is, as soon as the agenda is established, we'll try to give you some heads up as to what, if Chuck has a number that we can call even over the weekend, I don't mind calling
We'll know
somebody.
Thursday night, because the site visit schedule is that
Right.
Thursday night.
So we should know Thursday night, so I can call either Friday or Saturday at the latest.
And the next meeting is that Wednesday?
Yes.
Correct.
Right. Yeah, starting at 7, and again, I don't know where it's gonna be on the agenda, but you can check the postings. Any other comments or questions? Okay, I think we've gone about as far in this matter as we can. We need to see you all in roughly 2 weeks, and we'll see you people on Sunday, the 22nd. Okay,
Thanks for your time.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll look it up.
Oh, it's on the back of the schedule, it's the address.
Exactly. I've seen that logo too, and I just, I don't know.
Oh, it's too big. Get out of here.
Thank you.
It won't be here on the 25th, turns out. You're gonna have to,
Yeah,
That's what I'm thinking.
on the opposite corner.
I can't make the site, unless I kind of like to make a separate visit.
Excuse me, where is Mario's Pizza?
I'm sorry?
Where's your pizza?
It's in North Reading.
North.
On 28?
Yeah, okay.
Near the karate place?
Good night.
No,
That's
it's
what you
just-
ever had in your life.
Oh, okay, okay.
Eastgate Liquors?
Yes,
Right
Yeah.
by Eastgate Liquors, the CVS.
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Just curious, thanks.
Go there after Sunday for lunch.
We get a discount if we do.
Barbara never said that. Up on national television.
That's
there
it.
we are.
Now they
We're in trouble now.
I think that I won't, yeah, just want to.
They put commercials on instead.
Okay, given the hour, I'm not sure we could make much progress on
I tend to agree.
regulations. Chuck, do you want to go over your site visit?
I could.
Well, before we move off the regulations, just
Why
to
you
let
get stuck?
everybody know, the Board of Selectmen has asked for an update on February 28th
As to where we are.
as to where we are.
Yeah,
Well, we better get somewhere.
every meeting, we get to the end of the meeting and we say, it's too late, and we're too tired, nothing happens. It's 9:30. I mean,
It's early for us, is that what
it's
you're
early
saying?
for us, exactly. We should at least discuss it and make progress. I mean, we've gotta start getting there. I mean, and we're only gonna get there with hard work. And I'm told these are light schedules, so as it gets heavier and heavier, when are we gonna find the time to do this? I don't know, but maybe we choose one, we talk it out, maybe we don't make a decision tonight, but we get halfway
Fine,
there.
I-
That would be my,
Well,
you know,
let me throw this out there and see if it sticks. Vernal pools. We have a detailed definition of vernal pools that is sometimes hard to understand, sometimes maybe in conflict with itself.
You're too kind.
Perhaps a good scientific treatise, but not directly applicable to your normal everyday applicant. What I suggest is that vernal pools, according to Reading bylaw, be defined as being on the natural heritage list, a listed vernal pool, or eligible to be listed on the natural heritage list.
How is that is that well defined?
There is very well defined as a checklist. Okay. You go through the checklist, you fill it out, and it's either on the list or could be on the list.
It's just waiting to be reviewed.
Waiting to be reviewed, or the property owner doesn't want to endorse it, or nobody's going through the effort to do it. That is what constitutes a vernal pool.
Let me ask you this.
And everything else in the Reading bylaw is deleted, or excuse me, the regulations.
Well,
so let me ask you this though. So
yes.
what? I think the key here is though, how does a potential vernal pool become eligible? Because that's really that's where the science. That's where the science comes in.
Somebody submits it.
Okay, somebody submits it
by filling out that checklist.
Right.
Do we?
Well, I know we've lost. I don't know what Chuck's background is. I think he's got some, but you know my feelings on this. We've lost a lot of the We lost a lot of the expertise from this commission on wetland indicators and vernal pool definitions and the various species and stuff.
If we have a concern, and we went back and forth and talked about this a lot in our meetings this summer. If we have a concern and there's what might or might not be a vernal pool within the proximity of an applicant, we can require that they go through, have a qualified person go through and go through that checklist to make that determination.
Okay, all right.
Which is what we do, in essence, what we do now is say either the applicant or ourselves has to go through the definition and the regulations to make that determination. This would make it a whole lot simpler.
Yeah.
What, I guess my only question is eligible.
Yeah, what is that? What is eligible? Does that mean it looks like there's things evolving to the point where
it's got to be 12, 13 pages of guidelines on and stuff that needs to be there.
Right. All done by the state and by DEP and Natural Heritage.
Okay. All right.
I mean, you could just, if someone said it was a vernal pool, you could just grab the vernal pool checklist from Mass Wildlife or from
Natural
Heritage, and go through those pages.
Which Barb, I think, just showed me.
Well, that's partially true, Chuck, but that has certain questions on the checklist that you can't just sit around this table and do. You need a qualified biologist to go ahead and make that determination. Are they fairy shrimp present? Are they eggs present? Things like that.
I don't agree, but those certifications for the vernal pool is made for just the regular Joe, and they have those classes all the time at Mass Audubon, and it's quite simple to do.
Yeah, do you think these people have been through classes at Mass Audubon?
What you guys are talking about is the difference between that and the standards you've put on it here in Reading.
Yeah.
So, obviously this is definitely going to be a certified vernal pool if we go by Mass Audubon. But maybe here in Reading, you're looking and you're pinpointing little things that wouldn't really qualify for a vernal pool.
Well, I would agree with Jamie's proposal. My only concern is that someone fills it out and we accept the certification on a single professional, let's say, and for whatever reason something's missed or not certified correctly. Is there a verification with a second independent body or something like that? But why don't we look at this checklist and review it? I think it simplifies this document tremendously.
Natural Heritage?
Yes, you said what
Pardon me?
It comes from Natural Heritage.
That's the verification.
No, it comes from Natural Heritage because someone has gone through the checklist, sent it to Natural Heritage.
Natural Heritage has taken the time to review it and go out and look at it and say yes, and that is the problem. Is they've only got so many people,
right? And they don't
probably
look
got a
at
stack
most
of these vernal pool requests.
Right. Not looking.
Right.
Yeah, they're not looking. I mean, the reality is Natural Heritage, I'm told, I could be told incorrectly, is now currently supported by the license plate sales. And there is no state funding for natural heritage.
That's encouraging. Well, that,
yeah.
what you bring up is a real problem, but we already have that problem.
Exactly.
It's not created
Yeah.
by this change,
Yeah. We have, in a sense, established our own certification process.
which we are not qualified
Right.
to implement.
Right.
Yeah, we could eliminate 3 pages from the regulations if we take that definition out.
I mean, it's a
why I
certified vernal
did this.
pool by natural heritage, which would be great because it's backed up.
The only question I have, Jamie, which was my question, is you put the words eligible to be.
Yes.
Now,
That's because, well, go ahead, I'm sorry.
well, my concern is this, and that is, I therefore know how to handle the vernal pools that have already been certified
Yeah, that's,
by natural heritage. What does eligible to be mean?
that it meets the requirements on the checklist.
It would have to be well-defined, obviously, by saying
Yeah.
by the checklist.
Well, I just want to get other people's comfort level
Sure.
with that. I mean, I'm comfortable with saying that we would eliminate the existing regulations and basically say vernal pools are either listed vernal pools with natural heritage or eligible to be on the list based on their criteria.
Yeah.
Is that, I mean, that does simplify.
I mean, we're gonna review the list, right? I mean,
So you could.
I'm sure it's
you
thorough,
could-
but
I think that I actually think that anyone can go out and certify a vernal pool, so I'm not sure that, it takes a great deal of knowledge to do this kind of stuff.
I don't know, I can't tell apparently
with a field
mosquito
book.
larvae from fairy ship.
Yeah, well.
Perhaps with the right technical
I mean, I've done it
guides
with
and-
my kids a whole bunch of times. Usually once a summer, we go out and do the natural Audubon and then go again after the spring thaw or the winter thaw. But they walk you right through it. You should say it's either a certified vernal pool or someone from the commission can go out and go through that checklist and see that there's the eggs masses are there, or there's breeding habitat or something like whatever else it would take. The size.
Or how about,
So I'm not sure, Chuck, I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. Are you saying we should not?
Well, I think that the commission should check out the vernal pools or have them already certified by natural heritage.
I'm comfortable with that, either the
Okay.
commission
Okay.
or the administrator or somebody we hire and make the applicant pay for.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with that, but I've been through the certification process before, and if it's contentious, it's not that easy.
Right.
Yeah, well.
and if someone's trying to build, it's
No, I
always
agree.
contentious.
Right.
I agree.
All right, so it would seem to me that the wording we would want to do is listed with natural heritage or eligible to be on the list using their criteria.
how about we get specific and say something like meets the characteristic check? I mean, I don't want to say I guess I have a little problem with is eligible.
Well, meets the
Because
requirements
one-
specified.
Or meets the requirements
fine.
specified by natural heritage.
The reason I use the term eligible because it's an accepted term under the National Historic Preservation Act, which is very similar, and it says properties on the National Register or eligible to be. That's why I use that term, but meets the requirements for listing under the Natural Heritage Program is fine also.
All right, so what I'm scrivening here is our new definition in the regulations would be vernal pools are either listed vernal pools with natural heritage or meet the requirements specified by natural heritage.
For
To
listing.
qualify.
Or to qualify for listing.
But that doesn't say anything about what a vernal pool is.
Right. We defer to National Heritage.
And that way, if they change their regs,
If they change their regs, then we
just
change
have
it.
a short little thing that says what they are.
We could have books, we could have those certified vernal pool book from MACC at the office that everyone could
Well,
pick up.
let's go
Send
wrestle
out.
with Barbara's question of, should there be any definition?
The problem is if we provide a definition and then include what you just said, they could be in conflict.
Only because natural heritage might change that
Might
definition.
change. Or this might, or whatever we come up with might not.
There's a definition in the state, in the
I know.
DEP's
That's what this is.
regs. No, in the state regulation, there's a definition of vernal pool
I
habitat.
know. I did a combination of that plus Mass Wildlife plus divisions of fisheries. Combined it all into one paragraph.
Right, and I would say that we should, when we can, we just reference ourselves to known documents such as natural heritage or the state reg. I won't say it's a clear definition because you probably have to read it 3 times to really figure it out, but it is a definition that we probably shouldn't waver from and let people read this and understand it. There's enough, I think, enough reference material between this and natural heritage to define a vernal pool.
Let me make 2 suggestions, okay? One, Chuck, could you get the natural heritage checklist sent to us?
Sure could.
And 2, I'll take it upon myself to do what I did last time, which is to send out
This is what he's looking for.
this.
That would look like it.
Ah, there it is.
Or we could ask Barbara.
Yes. Fisheries, Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program Guidelines for Vernal Pools.
That's right.
And
Just
it-
reference that.
We could reference that
Yeah.
with its appropriate date.
Right.
Well, we would want the
most
current,
recent.
the most
Right.
recent, or
Right.
the.
But what I'm saying is
the,
that we could put that in, we could put that into our regulation to,
Sure.
Okay,
if we wanted to be tied into a requirement of a specific time.
do people want to review this or not?
I think we should, yeah.
Okay.
The only thing
I
would
think we all
suggest
agree
is-
on the fact of accepting, if it's on the list, it's on the list.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
the
Meet-
eligible
Right.
type.
It's the eligible
and how to
question.
certify those
Can-
or whatever.
Can you at least give us a reference so we can find it easily, Chuck?
Find it.
Okay.
If you go online and type Division of Fisheries and Wildlife,
Uh-huh.
and go to the next, and then go to their little search box, not, because you never know what they're, and say vernal pools, I'll bet you.
And there you go.
Okay.
Maybe.
'Cause that's fine.
Maybe. That's how she got it.
That's how I got it. And I think
Barbara, I'll give you
it's
that
right
back.
on the bottom of that,
I will give you that back.
the website.
Thank you, Barbara.
Should there be a time frame where the commission would check? I know it's in the old regs, it's sensitive to certain times of the year. So if you want a vernal pool certified by the commission, it has to be early spring.
Well, we don't want to be in the business of certifying vernal pools, I can
No.
tell you that right now.
But if someone says this is a vernal pool, I know it's a vernal pool, and they send the commission out or myself, don't you want it, give them the best opportunity and hold them off until early spring? So it's easy to certify it, or it's easy to say, yes, this is a vernal pool.
Well, that's, I think, in that document Barbara just has, it talks about various times of the year. I mean, your egg mass is pregnant, excuse me. Or egg mass is present. It
See
is
what I mean
right.
about 9:30? Some of us lose it, you young guys, you can keep going. but-
Yeah.
Then you
We
have
should
to go
start at
ahead at that
9:30.
time, you have to go ahead at that time of the year. I think, you're right, you do have to go ahead at that
Yeah.
time of the year, but I don't want in our regulations to specify what time the salamanders are gonna breed.
Well,
No, I'm
because I
just
don't
saying
wanna
what
find them
time
in
we
violation.
would feel more comfortable in checking them. I mean, in the midsummer, I'm sure the biologists could do it.
I
we
don't know
couldn't.
about that.
well, I mean, we do have some vernal pools that don't seem to dry up at all, but don't have any fish in them because they're isolated. Okay, so what I would propose you do, Chuck, is just give us the right reference so we can find it easily on the website. Each of us will review that checklist. I will, in the meantime, draft the language that I heard tonight, send it to all of you. If you have corrections or additions or emendations to it, send it to Chuck.
Right there is a great segue into what we're trying to do in some of the offices in Town Hall. We sent out the minutes and we asked you to comment on those. We're wondering if you'd like the regulations the same way. Now, everybody commenting on them cannot see what anyone else has commented. They all come back to my computer, and I see everyone's comment in a different color with your name next to it.
Oh.
And then I'm able to combine them, or just bring that final document to you at the next meeting, where you have the best recollection of what you just said. You're going to do what you did just once, and then I could bring it to the meeting.
That sounds fine to me. I think that's...
You might have to tune up your computers a little bit. We found in the office that some need a little, the latest version of, what's that computer program?
Acrobat.
Acrobat, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, those are...
I think that's a good idea. I also think it's a good idea to include Barbara's first paragraph as an introduction explaining why we have regulations. I would take out that piece about the 100-foot buffer.
Yeah.
But I think that first part of that, or all but that last part of that first paragraph, is good to explain why they're in the regulations. I think
That's what I was trying to get at.
So how this would work is I'll send out the entire regulations. Yeah.
In what
the entire wetland regulation?
No. Our regulations in
Reading.
Reading.
That's
And
what I mean.
everyone will make changes.
In what?
No, I'm sorry, Jeff, we can't do that.
No,
Well, Barbara just did it.
I know, but
If she did that on the computer rather than to bring it here,
it's too big a document, and there'd be too much discussion back and forth. And
no. You're only going to work on the section that you picked out the week
Okay,
before.
but then we only need the section that we picked out the week before.
All right, if that's the way you want it, then
Yeah, it would seem to me that that's the more sensible way to go, only because...
No, that's cool.
Yeah.
First of all, but Chuck,
fine.
suppose there's one phrase or one paragraph, and each one of us changes it in a different way.
It comes back with everyone's change. I bring it to the next meeting, you get to discuss
And
it.
we can-
Everyone
we can
sees
argue
what
with that.
works better.
So you're still gonna get 6 or 7 emails,
Right.
and you're gonna be able to combine all those comments into one
The
document?
computer does it.
Right.
Oh, I don't combine all the comments. If everyone commented the same, I have to take that back to you people,
Right.
and then you'll look at everyone's comment and make a final.
So we'll have 7 separate documents with tracking
No, you
changes.
have one separate
One
document with
document
7
tracking.
comments on
But
it.
the problem is, Tom, and I've been through this at work, if you have 7 people reviewing a paragraph, they all change it differently, what you're looking at
It's
is
a mess.
mind-boggling.
Yeah.
You cannot understand what's going on, believe me.
I agree. It gets very confusing.
Well,
Why don't we try it?
let's,
Yeah, I think-
See if it
I'll
gets
tell you what,
confusing.
let's try it with vernal pools. That's a simple one.
But can we start with what you write,
Yes.
rather than the existing regulations? Because the
I
existing
agree.
regulation is, what, 2 pages?
Right. I'm going to
3
start,
pages.
let's do it this way. I will draft this, send it to all of us.
Group comment.
And you will comment to Chuck,
Right.
okay? Not
And
to
he'll
me,
merge them.
and he'll merge it, okay?
Yeah, that'll
Or the
work.
computer will.
Chuck's computer will.
Go
It
ahead.
doesn't work that way?
No, it would have to come from Chuck. You can send your document to Chuck. Chuck's gonna send it out in Acrobat to all of you.
That's fine.
Okay.
Oh, I don't
Then
have
you guys
Acrobat
send it back to
Writer,
Chuck,
though.
and it combines it all together.
No, but Chuck will do it.
So you'd send us a PDF in Adobe.
It's
And-
Acrobat, yeah,
Yeah.
not PDF, it's
And-
Acrobat.
Well, that's, okay.
Acrobat is, I can't
Yeah.
edit an,
No, but you should be able to
Oh,
fill the
okay.
form in. You should be able to fill the form in with the reader.
You can't do it with
I
the
can't.
free version of
Right.
Adobe.
I don't
You
have-
need to buy
Yeah.
the
Oh.
more intelligent version
Right,
that
and I
allows
do-
you to.
I do not have that.
You know,
It's
throw in the notes
$399.
and
Yeah,
things
I
like
don't
that.
have that.
Yeah,
You can do the same thing with the Word document.
right.
You can send out a Word document, and we can all combat, and you can merge
I
it.
think
Track
that's what you
changes.
guys are, when you're saying it's really confusing, I think that's the process that you're talking about, because when we were told about this process, it's not supposed to be confusing when multiple people reply on it. So,
Yeah, we'll just turn on,
But
track changes.
if no one has
In Word,
Yeah.
But I can do it in Word. If you send me Word, I can do it. If you send me a PDF or an Acrobat,
Yeah,
I can't do anything.
I can't edit a
Yeah,
PDF.
I mean, a number of us don't have the edit version of the Acrobat.
Right.
A number of us.
But is it required? I know
Yeah.
that the reader version, you can fill in the form, but you can't save it. But maybe with this system, it'll allow you to email the changes accordingly. And you see what I'm saying? It might be set up that way.
Maybe you could,
Did
I mean, I know how to do it. I have the higher, our company has the higher
do
version,
too.
so I would just do it there. And,
See, I couldn't.
you know, so I'm not going to be able to
You
try
have
it
it?
from the free version, but
I
maybe
have the
you could,
the higher version.
I don't see.
yeah. I mean, I can
That's how
convert a
I knew how
PDF
much
back
it
to a
was, 'cause
Word,
I
so,
had them buy it.
you know.
Well, I tried to get one. They wouldn't buy me one.
Well,
Maybe I could stop by somebody's office, sit down at their desk.
Yeah, sure.
You
Come
guys
on
can
over.
watch the
Yeah.
kids, and I
Yep.
can sit there.
Come on over.
That sounds like a really good
Come
deal.
on over.
As long as we're all talking the same pay as I'm getting.
The next day that hits 50, I'll be over.
Agree with that.
You know?
Okay.
well, let's
All right.
try this, and that is, I will draft this, I will send it to Chuck. and
In
he will-
Word.
in-
Microsoft Word.
I will do my best to send it to him in Microsoft Word. Yes,
Of course, it'll send it in Microsoft Word.
okay.
How about if people cannot do that, you know, make those changes, you just literally drop it off to him in person? What's wrong with it?
With handwritten changes?
My God, yes. What
And
about
then
that?
Chuck would have to type in all those handwritten changes?
Or just
What are
make a
you talking
photocopy of it and make it available to the commission the next time. I'm not saying a massive
No,
level,
we
but
can-
just to get the change. I don't know.
I think what-
I don't want to see huge amounts of effort.
The last effort we did here was extremely confusing to figure out, and that's what we're at the office is trying not to run into. So it would be great if you use track changes. I mean, that would be fine with
Yeah,
me.
track changes in Word.
So
Yeah,
let's
that
let's
works
do
for
that.
me. I think that's a great idea.
But we need to start with a Word document to do that.
I'll send out.
Right.
Well, wait a minute. You guys don't want the regulations.
Just-
Would it be easy to start with the regulations,
No,
then you would
no,
make
no.
changes?
No.
You can strike
mean,
everything and
Believe me,
rewrite
I've
it.
got all
Way
done
to
with that.
go.
No.
We already should have the whole set.
Start with Bill's proposed change.
But
What?
I will send a
The
proposed
existing
change to you in
regulations are
Word.
3 pages just on vernal pools.
Wanna know
Well,
is-
we're all going to
In,
strike
in,
out
in this
sections.
particular case, we're essentially striking the entire
whole thing.
section.
Yeah.
The whole
Right.
thing.
Start
We're
over.
writing something new. So why don't you
then
write
write
something
the-
new?
You know what the beauty
And
of that
have
is?
him
You get to
strike the whole thing.
accept the
In this case,
changes.
in other cases, it might be a word as paragraph
Right. No,
or grammar.
That's what he's doing.
understand that, but
That's
in-
effectively what he's doing.
In this case, what I will do is write the new thing, send it to Chuck. He can strike the changes that are struck because they are different, and show us both the old regulation and the new one, all right?
Set the whole regulation.
And the only thing you need to do,
What are we working
short,
on?
quickly, is to give us the right place to look at natural heritage.
There's also
All right, Tom, thank you for urging us to do this. We got vernal pools sort of done, more or less, maybe.
regulation, then people wouldn't have to bother
And,
us.
I have one question on wildlife habitat. I'd be willing to discuss it and talk about it, but my question is it says, and maybe Jamie could answer it, is in the recommended modifications, it talks about revise the wildlife habitat definition and methods to evaluate effects such that they are consistent with the state's definition. And you're talking about the State Wetlands Protection Act.
Correct.
Okay.
The issue that was pointed out to us in our hearings was that our regulations talk about a lot of wildlife attributes that are not related to jurisdictional wetlands.
That's right.
And we want to get them out of this.
Yep. So that, that's I think pretty straightforward type recommendation. Very similar to the way we're handling vernal pools.
Exactly.
And I think next time we sit, or we should
well,
be able to
let's see if we
decide
can
on
get
that.
wildlife definitions done for the next meeting, complete the vernal pool piece. And Jamie, could you give us a hint as to what you think is the next, or Barbara, the next least difficult?
The least difficult?
Well, I mean,
Barriers and wetlands. We're supposed to do those.
probably, I won't answer your question, but I will answer the inverse of your question. Probably the most difficult are going to be what defines a jurisdictional wetland and isolated wetlands. Our jurisdiction over isolated wetlands, since they're not within the state jurisdiction.
Okay.
They're probably the two most controversial. Probably the most difficult complex are the fees, because I don't even know how we will attack that. If you take those two as the remaining issues, I think are relatively simple and relatively similar level of complexity.
If I could get a Word copy of the regulation, I would volunteer to take and compare the definitions in the state regulation to the definitions in the town of Reading regulation, and highlight whether it's a word added or a word deleted type of comparison.
You're
for us
talking
to be
about
able-
wildlife now?
No, all the definitions.
All of this. Okay.
All of the definitions in the
Fine.
town regulation either have a subtraction of a word or the addition of a word or phrase. And it just slightly changes the meaning.
Occasionally they're identical, but that's
Exactly, yeah,
the
sometimes they
exception
are.
rather than
Yeah.
the rule.
And it would be an easy way to compare that and make
Fine.
some decisions that,
Good. If you would send the definitions to Tom,
Do
then
you have a Word? Do you have it in Word?
I
The
have it.
regulations?
Yeah.
all right, so we're gonna work on, we will hopefully settle vernal pools, wildlife, and at least look at definitions for the next one.
That's 5 pages right there in the regulations.
Right.
Verticals and wildlife is 5 pages.
Did we resolve
Just the
submission?
two of them.
Most of it, we can just reference the state.
Did we
Get rid of
resolve, I missed a meeting or two, did we resolve what the submittal requirements were based on Tom's matrix spreadsheet?
Yes.
Yes, essentially,
meeting of the 14th, or I
Yeah.
forget which
What
one.
did we decide to do?
essentially, we decided to adopt the wording that's in the DEP in almost all cases.
Adopt it into our regulations or
No,
just refer to it?
reference. Just
Okay,
reference.
so that takes out another 2 or 3 pages.
It's great, we're doing well.
Yeah, basically, what we decided to do is simply reference it.
Good.
And, any other,
I have a quick,
Yep.
something to insert. The town, myself, and some of the consultants were wondering why they're not sending out their own abutter notifications.
Why, who is?
Hiding the legal, and they then turn around and, send
rather
out
than
either
providing, what
certificate of
happens now
receipt.
is that the process is the applicant provides, we provide the labels, they provide the stamped envelopes with the labels on them, and then we have to send them out. There's no reason to do that.
But they pay the postage.
Yes, they do that, but
Right.
But there's no verification that they ever got.
Right, we don't require them at the beginning of the meeting to show us a majority of
Green
those
cards.
cards.
They give those green cards to
There's no
you.
green cards in the process that was
there's
at
no
the
green
town
cards
hall.
right now.
Really?
But
They don't receive a green card?
No.
They should.
They're sending them out on a 44-cent stamp rather than a certificate of mailing.
That's
or a,
not in compliance with the state regulations.
That's right,
I don't believe.
I think we should go back to where the applicant handles all that himself and brings those cards to us and shows us who's
Yes,
contacted.
that's what I've done in every other town I've worked in.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone wants to
Yeah.
have that happen. It's going to take a burden off the office.
I think we
Yeah.
should.
So I'm not sure if this
pass
can
a
be something
big
that can be
cost
voted
on
on
to the
tonight, or we're
applicant.
researching, get it ready for next week, or the next meeting.
Why don't you get it ready for the next meeting, and but I don't see any reason for us to be doing that. Number one, we don't have any verification.
Yeah.
And number two, why should we be doing the labor burden of turning those around?
And that's another reason, well, it's also in the Wetlands Protection Act, that's exactly how it's supposed to work.
Yes,
It should
it
be
is.
like the
So,
wetlands.
so if that is in our regulation, we would need to post that as a public hearing to discuss that issue and change the rule, correct?
Well,
And-
I'm not sure we would. We could just require them to comply with the state
No,
regulation.
we would have to do it because it's a change in our regulation.
We'd have to wipe out our regulation on that and they would just follow the state rule.
I'm not sure.
They should follow the state rule anyway.
What's that?
Is it in the regulation?
It just says that you'll provide envelopes or something like that. It doesn't say that we're sending them out. It was kind of vague.
But can't we just require them to
And I don't have
comply
to look
with
here
this?
tonight.
Chuck, can't we just require them to comply with the state regulations, which means they have to send them in and bring you the green card?
Yeah, or we could just say that, yeah.
And
one
then
way or
just
the
say,
other.
then we wouldn't have to change our regulations.
Yeah, we're actually we have a lot of liability for doing it this way.
Yeah. I never got notified. Well, how do you know?
Don't know.
Yeah.
They do it the same way in Lexington, but
Wow.
Every time I've
every
worked
town I
in.
ever heard of.
I think I've read in here somewhere
Anyone have the
where it
regular-
kind of describes this process, and if it
In
does
the state.
describe it, we would need to eliminate it before we can go back to the state.
Right.
Is it in the notice of intent?
We wouldn't have to
section, maybe?
eliminate, they could be required to do both.
No.
Well, they
The
ca-
problem we have is if it's written in the regulations, we can't change our behavior until we absent it from the regulations. And we
Well-
can't do that
Yeah.
Oh, right.
until we
Right.
have a
Same filing
public.
procedure in the
Okay.
regulations.
What does it say?
Let's see. Stamped or properly metered, legal-sized envelopes addressed with the names and addresses of the abutters as shown in the certified abutters list available from the Reading Assessor's Office, which is one of the things they must submit.
And that would just say green cards.
It's on page 28.
Page 28.
It's listed on 23 as well, too, a little bit.
23
Filing
also?
procedures. A complete notice of intent, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Shall include stamped or properly metered, without a date, legal-sized envelope.
But if the state requires those return receipts, we can just tell them, when you file your application, you need to notify butters in compliance with the state. Oh, the state has a different distance
Right.
for butters.
Right.
There's several
Right.
issues. Number
Right.
one, it's in the regulations. We can't not operate within the regulations
Yeah, they
until
have
we
to.
amend them.
Yeah.
And
That'd
number
be-
two,
That'd be a mess.
I mean, it seems to me what you can report back to the office is we want to move to compliance with the state regulations, even though we will have a slightly different.
We have a
distance.
different diameter.
You know how much it costs
Radius.
to send one of those?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going
Too
to
bad.
raise the
State
price.
says you have to do-
$5.25
No.
per,
There's $7. They're like $7.50 for.
a regular size envelope is $5.25. I've sent out 6 of them in the last month.
Well, my orders of conditions in Boxford are $7.50. So
You had a 44-cent stamp on yours already, though.
No,
No?
well,
I did the
it's
first time
it's
around
not
and
cheap.
then I didn't.
It's not
Well,
cheap.
We had a guy in town that did
Begging
it,
to
and
allow this to
who did
happen.
I think one of the
160
things that we ought to
abutters.
remark to the selectmen is that by adhering to the state standards,
Go away
we just
altogether.
raised the price for people who want to notice abutters from 44 cents to,
yeah.
I mean,
Five
it is more
change.
expensive, I'm sorry, but there's no way we have verification that they actually did
No,
that unless we get that.
there's two processes that are accepted. This one here, the 525 or whatever, and there's the other one, the certificate of mailing, which is only like a $2.35.
And you get a return receipt?
Well, they actually just stamp them at the post office that you've turned them in to be mailed,
right.
and they can turn in those white slips. So both those are in the Wetlands Protection Act.
You
Oh,
mean
I see.
either or?
Okay.
But what I think we need to do as, in our conversation is to remind people that one of the things that's going to happen is that, you know, we're going from a process which cost 44 cents in a butter to something that costs north of that by a lot.
Yeah. But
But-
north of that's the right way.
But we're
to do it, so
tremendously
you have a
reducing
record.
the time it takes
yeah.
town
Yeah.
staff.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not arguing that.
And all these documents.
All I'm telling you is that one of the things the selectmen need to know is that we're jumping the price of notifying an abutter from 44 cents to
At least $2.
at least $2. We're taking load off the town, there's no question about that.
And
And we're putting load on the
Applicant.
applicant, which is fine. I'm not averse to that. I just want when we make that change, and the next person who comes in here and says, "Do you mean it cost me?" and the answer is, "Yeah, it's going to cost you $500 to do that."
And for other public meetings, how do they notify butters? Just that same way with
I
a
think the
44
planning
cent
board
stamp?
does the same thing.
Yeah, they do.
But they don't have that regulation like we do. This is unusual, and it's the applicants that have been asking me about it. Anyone who's been to another town, you know, people are getting 2 legal notices. One, they don't trust us to send it, so they're going to pass in green cards and send their own. and then we send ours out also.
Just walk around and put them in mailboxes, and
This room.
they're a lot cheaper.
I've seen people passing green.
Well, yeah, I think we would
not
all
all the time,
accept the
Mary.
fact that if
It's
you
not
got
required,
the
but I've seen
certified
people
butters list
passing
and their
green.
neighbor's sign next to it, that would be fine.
Right.
I know
They
if I was
received a
doing
legal
anything,
notice.
Yeah, yeah.
I would want to have that,
What the one
so no one could come back and say, well, you never gave it to me.
Okay.
Here's green.
Keep that up.
It seems to me that it's nearing 10 o'clock. Suppose we adjourn.
We're moving
This one
backwards.
here, this one.
Second.
All those in favor, please rise and leave.
You need to look up this Mass General.
Being a guy that I did one for.